Thanks for everybody for being here tonight. We moved the meeting from City Hall to Crystal Beach so we could accommodate easily 50% more capacity, and it looks like we've accomplished that. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. This is part of our process. And before we get into the agenda of the meeting, I just want to tell you why we are here. We are here because of a zoning application that was presented to the Plan Commission. And the Plan Commission, and that's part of our agenda, we'll talk about that part. The Plan Commission is required to hear the application and then forward it on to City Council. City Council has jurisdiction over a 2-mile area known as 2-mile jurisdiction known as the buffer zone, which majority of these parcels are located in. So there is a zoning application that's been referred to the City Council, and City Council's job is to deliberate, hear testimony, and make a determination on whether or not they're going to approve the zoning application. If the zoning application gets approved, and it won't be tonight, that'll be at the next meeting because we have 3 readings on this matter. At the next meeting, which will be September the 3rd, council will decide if they approve or not approve. If the zoning application is approved by council as presented, then it would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for determination of the land use. So there's several things happening here. One is the zoning, and then the other one is the actual land use. Is the intended use, based on that application, considered to be appropriate for the area underneath the zoning ordinance? Now, council can make a determination both on zoning and land use if they so wish, and that will be decided when they make their decision at the next meeting. We are not streaming live tonight. All of our meetings generally are streamed live on the City of Madison's YouTube channel, but because we have moved the location, our streaming equipment is at City Hall. But we wanted to safely accommodate everybody who wanted to be here. So we are not streaming, but we are recording the meeting, and the meeting will be posted to the City of Madison YouTube channel as soon as we can afterwards, probably by tomorrow morning. With that being said, welcome to the Tuesday, August 20th, 24th City of Madison Council meeting. Like with all of our meetings, we'll first start by standing, removing our hats, bowing our heads, reciting the Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One other note, and that is, one other note, and that is the meeting is going to be broken up into parts. So we'll have our regular agenda, and then when we move into the discussion and the advertised public hearing for the zoning application, we will suspend the regular council meeting. I'll make that announcement when we get to that point, and then we'll open up the public hearing. Hence why we had to sign in the table when you came in. So let's begin with clerk calling roll, please.
Patrick Devenant.
Here.
Carla Krebs.
Here.
Lindsay Tinsel.
Here.
Joshua Schaefer.
Here.
Joel Storm.
Here.
Jim Hartman.
Here.
Here.
This one's live. We'll continue to work with our new technology that's here. Council, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from August the 6th? If so, we'll entertain a motion to approve the common council minutes from August 6th.
I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we'll move straight into bills on second reading. And I'll ask Mindy to navigate that. Turn it over.
The first bill on second reading is ordinance number 2024-6, and its sponsors are Wilbur and Schaefer. And it's an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Madison, Indiana, repealing and replacing Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances regarding Common Council procedures.
So we'll open up the second reading, and I'll just do a little quick preview. As stated on the agenda, this updates meeting procedures of Common Council, reduces the number of readings for a bill from 3 to 2, and clarifies privileges of citizens during the public comment. This was a project that was discussed over the course of the last several months in the Projects Committee. Our attempt here is to modernize ordinances as we've done over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. This is an ordinance that has not had any modernization to it for probably about a decade, and many of the elements of it date back to the 1960s. Council, you have attached the exhibit, which is the proposed new Common Council rules of procedure, as well as a red line that shows you each of the changes that were made. And also those participating in the Projects Committee would be Councilman Wilbur, Schaefer, and Eads.
Okay, I'm going to move that we table the second reading of these until next time.
I'll second the motion.
I just have a question, why?
I had some concerns about reducing the ordinance readings from 3 to 2. I don't believe it gives council enough time to digest everything that they're given and be able to ascertain what the public feels on the issue. So I have an amendment to the ordinance I would like to present. However, in light of everything I was preparing for this, I didn't get it prepared and distributed to council until right now. So I think this would give us time to digest this and have a proper discussion at the next meeting.
I would agree with Councilman Kavanaugh that I think sometimes there is information presented that people aren't aware of, and that a third reading would be appropriate.
Any other comments on the motion to table the second reading to the September 3rd council meeting? Have roll call, clerk.
Patrick Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Carla Krebs,
Yes?
Lucy DiTillo,
Yes.
Joshua Schaefer,
Yes.
Joel Storm,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
and Josh Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll move on to, we'll now suspend the regular meeting, and we'll open up the public hearing on the proposed change of zoning map from low-density residential to agriculture. And I'll turn this back over to Joe.
This is also going to kind of parlay and be the second reading. It's the second reading of ordinance number 2024-7, sponsored by Councilman Kavanaugh. It is an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Madison, Indiana, amending the zoning map of the City of Madison, Indiana. And this is talking about specifically changing parcels of low-density residential, which is R4, to agricultural, and that is 3247 West Deputy Pike, 3201 plus West Deputy Pike, 2601 West Deputy Pike, 3247 West Deputy Pike, 3621 North 300 West, and 3000 plus West Chicken Run Road. It is also asking for the property to be changed from residential agriculture to agriculture, and that's at 4321 West Deputy Pike, 3901 plus West Deputy Pike, 3356 West Deputy Pike, 3600 plus West Deputy Pike, 400 North, 3500 plus West Deputy Pike, or I'm sorry, West 400 North, 3621 North 300 West, 3621 plus 300 North 300 West, 3750 West Deputy Pike, and 3356 West Deputy Pike.
So the way we'd like to manage this part of the public hearing is to first ask everybody to direct their comments to City Council. This meeting is about City Council learning about the concerns or advocacy for the zoning application. So as you come to in a minute, we'll invite people up to the podium for public comment. I know there was quite a few people that indicated they wanted to speak. Please direct your comments to council. This is what we're here for. But before we begin that, we'll allow the applicant for the zoning change to make a presentation to inform council as well about the project. And while we're doing this, just another kind of order here. Ian, I would ask you to take as little time as you can, and then when people come to the podium, please make your remarks concise to council, and then take your seats, and we'll follow up toward the end if there's any outstanding questions or concerns that council may have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Council. I'm sorry. Thank you, Council, for having me, having us at the company to present in front of you for this rezoning request.
Very well.
For this rezoning request, I'm going to kick it off first with our VP of Regulatory Affairs, Nadia, here, who's going to start off the presentation, and then we'll move forward there.
Thank you, Ian. Mayor Courtney, President Krebs. Thank you. And thank you to Mayor Courtney, President Krebs, and distinguished members of the Madison City Council. Again, my name is Nadia Pabst. I'm the Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs at IPA Power, and it is a pleasure to be before Council today to talk about the merits of the rezoning request before Council. Before diving into the rezoning request, I wanted to share a little bit about our company. We have been building, owning, and operating standalone energy storage assets as well as hybrid renewable energy projects since 2016. We've been in the game for a very long time. We're really invested in building more resilient communities, specifically here in Indiana, and move our nations toward the energy independence that we're all moving towards. We're headquartered right here in the USA, in Austin, Texas. We have 35 projects online and in operation. We, again, have built and owned every single one of those projects and have done so since, again, 2016. And we have 77 projects that are currently under development or construction throughout the great state of Indiana and about 22 states across the country. When we talk about our investments in Indiana, it represents $400 million of energy infrastructure investments. Specific to the project that we are looking to build within the buffer zone, that represents $150 million invested in Williams Energy Center. We have $400 million, again, invested throughout the state, about 1 gigawatts of projects, as well as 2 projects that can come online as early as Q4 of 2025. Those projects include the Williams Energy Center. Something that's very important to Americans across this country is whether or not these projects have any foreign ownership. And we are able to testify and provide formal and legal attestation to Madison as well as the state of Indiana what you see here, that this is a company and property owner, nor the property owner. We are not wholly owned subsidiary nor a majority owned subsidiary. Parent company or affiliate of the company or property owner is not owned by individuals who are citizens of China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia. A company or other entity, including a governmental entity that is owned or controlled by citizens or is directly controlled by the government of China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia. We have made this formal attestation in other states. We are absolutely willing to do the same here. And that goes beyond the ownership side. We are not held or controlled by any of those entities or countries that I just mentioned, and we certainly aren't headquartered there. So again, those countries are China, Iran, North Korea, or Russia. We're headquartered in Austin, Texas. A little bit about the project, and again, we've spoken to this on a number of occasions, but this is a utility-scale solar energy project. It's 150 megawatts. As you know, it's located in Jefferson County within that Madison buffer zone. The footprint of that project is 600 acres, part of a 1,000-acre, 25-year lease with the local landowner. As part of this project, we are firmly committed to doing our part to make sure that the energy and reliability benefits served to users does not go to neighboring states, it's not going to Detroit, it's not going to Chicago, it's right here to serve southern Indiana. The tax revenues, as we've heard before, is over $20 million that can be used for schools, road, and infrastructure projects. And again, before council today is the ask to rezone the land for agricultural use from residential ag and R4.
All right, so to kind of piggyback on what Nadia was saying, I wanted to put up a map here for the area that we have identified for the project. As Nadia said, the project footprint's about 600 acres. That's how big the solar footprint is on a lease of about 1,000 acres, which represents less than 1% of the county land that's in farms. It also conforms to the same designation as lands to the north and to the west in Jefferson County, creating that continuity with other uses around there. If anyone's been out there, it is agricultural land. It's used for row cropping. And so our ask before the council is that you would rezone the land from residential agriculture and low density residential to agriculture to both better reflect the current use of the land, and also because it's part of sorry, losing my train of thought. Because it's the current use of the land, which is agriculture, and then also because it's similar to what has been presented for this land in the comprehensive plan. So that is our ask before the council. Now, I recognize the elephant in the room. Why everyone's here? They're not here because of a rezone. Everyone's here because of the solar project. So we're going to talk about some things from the solar project, recognizing, as Mayor Courtney said, that we're going to have to go through a completely separate process for approvals through the Board of Zoning Appeals for the solar project. But given that that's sort of why everyone is here, we figured we'd go ahead and talk about a number of things. One of the important aspects of the solar farm is that it does provide long-term steady income for Indiana farmers. You know, it's land leases that are guaranteed for a certain number of years, typically 25 to 30 years. And during that time, farmers can use that land for anything that they need to buy equipment, use the money from the lease to buy equipment, or whatever they need to do to operate their farms. So it really does help the farmers continue to stay farming. A couple different creative solutions for mixing solar with agriculture, which they call agrivoltaics. You can actually integrate solar panels with grazing, and you do that with sheep that you rotate in and out, and that's something that we're open to and certainly open to discussing with both the City Council and the Board of Zoning Appeals if that's something that would be intriguing to them. One of the other important aspects of this is the land restoration post-operation. That's a question we get quite often. Indiana code is very specific that we have to decommission the project, restore it back to its original use, and we are committed to doing that. We sign additional agreements as well with the Jefferson County Commissioners, and then we also, in the land leases with the landowners, have those as well that say we've got to post financial security and make commitments to the removal obligations of the site. So we will be removing, at the end of the life of this project, we will be removing the equipment and restoring the land back to its original use. For soil conservation, obviously farming requires a lot of chemical inputs and pesticides and fertilizers and other things like that. The land during our solar farm, the life of our project, is not going to have that. The soil's going to rest. We'll be planting native species of grass, perennial ground cover to make sure that we conserve the soil that's there. And at the end of this project, we fully expect that the soil will be in better shape than it was before. This is just an example of a project in Indiana called Mammoth Solar. They incorporated sheep grazing into their solar farm. This is while it was under construction, and this is what it can look like, right? That's something that we can do to both manage the grass and then also incorporate agriculture into our site. Again, on the decommissioning, there's Indiana code. We must submit a decommissioning plan, site restoration plan, and post a surety bond pursuant to Indiana code to ensure that even in the event that we do not, if something were to happen to the company, that there is money set aside to actually decommission. The other thing to note here for recycling and reuse is there's still value here at the end of the life of the project. The solar panels don't just stop working. Typically by the end of the project, manufacturers now offer an 80% warranty on their efficiency. So they're saying at the end of a 25-year life cycle of a solar panel, there's still about 80% of their original efficiency. So they're still valuable at the end of the project. There's also recyclable materials, and there's things that you can scrap as well. So there's value there at the end of it. There's money set aside. You know, we don't plan on ever having the county draw on the decommissioning bond. We would come out and actually do that ourselves, but that is there for safety for the county, just so that they have some assurances that that'll be removed. For third-party environmental due diligence, I've actually got Sarah Weaver here, who is with Bowman. She's been our consultant on the project for environmental procedures and practices for the last year and a half that I've been on it. And so I work hand in hand with Sarah. We've done a number of studies. I know bats was one of the things that came up at the Plan Commission hearing. We've completed a bat acoustic study to ensure conservation of their habitats. We've done a phase 1 environmental site assessment. We've done a critical issues analysis, which evaluates any potential environmental risks, and we're avoiding any of those that we found. There were very, 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 very few. We also did a wetland delineation, and we're avoiding any jurisdictional wetlands. So we're working closely with the Corps of Engineers on the wetlands to make sure that we're avoiding any impacts to jurisdictional wetlands. Prior to construction, we'll come out with the city and get a stormwater prevention permit, stormwater pollution prevention permit, the SWIP, to ensure strategies against stormwater pollution during and post-construction. So at the end there, just kind of wrapping it up, we have comprehensive assessments that we've done leading up to this. There's been a lot of due diligence over the last year and a half to make sure that we're in compliance with all local, state, and federal regulations, and we expect to continue to be that way. All right, it's kind of a goofy picture, so just hang with me. This is a picture from a solar farm in Florida that I worked on probably 8 years ago now. I think someone, when they were making the deck, was taking a shot at me and said, "Not that tall," and I didn't catch that. But you can see if you ask me on a normal day, I would say 6'1". For this purposes, I'll say 6 foot. And that's about how tall the panels are. So I think there's a misconception about exactly how tall these are. That's about how tall they are. A couple other things you can see, there's no concrete in the foundations of the I-beams right there. So that's an easy lift with a post puller to pull it out. There's nothing else that's in the ground. There's minimal infrastructure that allows vegetation beneath, and it's designed for easy removal. Now, the grass is there. This is in Florida. That's not what this is going to look like. I know that's going to be one of the questions. The Florida land there doesn't have as pretty of grasses typically. So that's why it looks like that. This is also newly under construction. But for all intents and purposes, that's the size of the panels, and that's how minimally invasive they are to the land. There's really not a whole lot that goes into it. It's actually kind of shockingly simple. You just drill those I-beams into the ground, put a racking system on top of it, and lay the panels on it. And that's it. When you're done with it, all you have to do is remove those panels, remove the racking system, and then lift the posts up, and then you're done. It's restored. Then you fill the holes, obviously, and the land is restored. So a big question about that we get often, I've gone around and talked to neighbors and knocked on some doors and talked to some people, and everyone's been very, very, very kind, so I'm very appreciative of that. One of the things that often gets asked, like, what is this going to look like, right? So we got a rendering done. We got 2 renderings done. This is on Highway 7, heading south into Madison. The project is behind these trees right here. You cannot see it from Highway 7. We have aggressive landscape buffering on all areas around the roads, homes, anything that we believe that there's community interest in protecting the viewshed. We have worked closely with the city so far just to make sure that we are maintaining that visual impact. We agreed to abide by the Jefferson County solar ordinance, which is one thing that we talked about, and one thing that they require is a visual buffer with landscaping. So that's what we've done here around the entire project. We have a full landscape plan that shows what trees and what shrubbery will be used to block view, but the intent is to block the view to the best of our ability. I've got one more rendering here. This is on Deputy Pike Road, looking west. And in addition to the vegetative buffering, I didn't add this in the previous one because you couldn't really see it, but the farmers have indicated that they would like to plant corn on the outside of our vegetative buffer, so we will allow them the room to do that. And so for essentially half the year, you're looking at basically what you were already looking at, which is corn. On the other half of the year, when corn has been harvested, you're looking at the trees and the bushes that are behind it. And so we will limit the visibility to the public to the absolute best of our ability. That's something that we've been hyper-focused on and will continue to be. All right, there's some fancy words up there. You're going to hear probably some comments about toxic chemicals coming from solar panels. That's one thing that gets brought up a lot. The type of panel that we're using is a crystalline silicone panel, which is in a solid state. It's more environmentally friendly. It's actually it contains no harmful materials. It's actually more efficient than any of the other types of panels. What people are typically talking about when they talk about toxic chemicals is cadmium telluride, which is in thin film solar cells, which we have agreed not to use on this site. So we will not be procuring thin film solar cells that have cadmium telluride. That will be one thing that will come up. I want to be extra crystal clear. We will be using silicone solar panels. Silicone is one of the most abundant resources on Earth. It's actually the second most abundant resource on Earth. It comes from quartz sand, and it's really simple. And there's no fluid or chemicals or anything in the panel that would ever leach out or anything like that in silicone panels. Again, we will not be using thin film solar cells that contain materials like cadmium telluride. Those panels only make up about 5% of the utility scale market, and crystalline silicone makes up a little bit over 90% of the market. So we were already going to use that, but we have agreed to just use those silicone panels. All right, property values is another big thing that's brought up when we talk about these projects. We did commission a third-party independent review. I do have Rich Kirkland here, who did the review, who will be here to testify if anybody has any questions. He did the study on the property values, and his conclusions were that the adjoining properties have sufficient setbacks from the proposed solar panels to protect adjoining property values. The distances indicated for this project are well supported by the market data and sufficient for protecting adjoining property values. I therefore conclude that the project as presented will not have a negative impact on adjoining property values. One of the other conclusions that you can find in the study is very similar solar projects in very similar areas have been found by hundreds of towns and counties not to have a substantial negative impact to abutting or adjoining properties, and many of those findings of no impact have been upheld by appellate courts. Similar solar projects have been approved with adjoining agricultural uses, schools, churches, and residential developments. If you go online and you read through a number, step this way. You go through a number of studies, almost all of them will show you the same things. There's regular market fluctuations in real estate, and this does not venture outside of that. There is no evidence to support a decrease in property values from these projects. One of the other questions that came up in the Plan Commission hearing was in the event of extreme weather. I just wanted to call out a few things here. In the event of high winds, solar panels that are designed these days are designed and tested to withstand winds up to 140 miles per hour or more. You've seen many examples in South Florida of solar farms that have gone through hurricanes. Hurricane Ian was one that came in with over 100 mile an hour winds. And actually the only community that stayed with the lights on was the community that was purely powered by solar. So they could keep the lights on. There was no damage, no significant damage to the project, and they kept the lights on for that community. For hail, they undergo rigorous testing to ensure that they can withstand hail impacts. In the unlikely event of damage, which can happen from hail, the panels sort of function similarly to your smartphone or even like a windshield, which is that it's a tempered glass. So even if it cracks, everything stays in place and no material comes out of it. Number one, there's no materials in crystalline silicone panels that could ever come out because it's a solid state panel. There's no liquid or fluid in them. In this event, if a large piece of hail struck a solar panel and cracked it, everything would stay intact. Everything inside the panel would stay inside the panel, and it would just crack similar to like how your smartphone does if you drop it, and everything stays intact. Heavy snow and ice, it's not typically a problem this far south, but they have the highest ratings for snow loads, and they're also on a tracking system, so you can move them to shed the snow to keep the efficiency. Obviously, lightning with any electric facility is something you want to think about. There's grounding and surge protection to minimize that risk or damage from the lightning strikes. Direct lightning strikes are pretty rare. I haven't seen one in my career of 8 years doing this, but modern protections obviously are highly effective at preventing any significant damage to the project. I want to call out one more issue that gets brought up pretty often about these projects. EMF is a thing that gets brought up all the time. The truth about, let me see if I can find my paper. The truth about EMF is that it's everywhere, right? Electromagnetic frequency, the wide use of electricity across the country basically creates a situation where there's background levels of EMF everywhere you go. Anywhere that people are in here, there's background levels of EMF. I want to call out that when you stand 3 feet from your refrigerator, the magnetic field is 6 milligauss. When you stand 3 feet from your microwave, you experience 50, okay? At the perimeter of a solar facility, 0.2. It is at background levels. It's not a concern. Even if you stood right next to the inverters, which is where the majority of electromagnetic fields are, even if you stood directly near their inverters, it's still under the recommended amount that's safe by the EPA. So there is no issues with EMF, despite what you might hear. I've heard claims of light bulbs turning on and stuff when you come up to the, it's just not true. If you go up to the perimeter of these things, it is at background levels. You cannot see it. You cannot hear it. The inverters, if you go by any like high voltage line, you stand directly under it, you can hear a little bit of buzzing. If you stood next to the inverters, which is the only thing that potentially makes noise on the system, the only thing you would hear is a slight buzz, similar to like your refrigerator. So if you're having a conversation at this volume, you're not going to hear it. So it does not provide any impact to any surrounding neighbors for noise, sound, anything like that. EMF. So those are sort of the main issues that we've seen brought up. I'm happy to answer questions from the council. I am going to let Nadia go really quickly on the remainder of this presentation, and then I'll jump back up here.
Council members, thank you again for your patience this evening. We did want to close on a very important matter here in Indiana. Indiana needs more energy. When you look to recent headlines, and we have headlines here from the Indiana Capital Chronicle, the Indiana Business Journal, other Indiana news sources that speak to the dire energy crisis that stands before all of us today. So I'll read these headlines. I recognize they're a little hard to read, and I apologize. The first one from the Indiana Capital Chronicle highlights that transmission operator warns of electric capacity deficit. This is from earlier this year. Also earlier this year, MISO warns immediate and serious challenges are threatening reliability. And the last one that we have featured here is from the Indiana Business Journal. It speaks to the Indiana Capital Chronicle. Data centers are choosing Indiana. Is the state's electricity supply ready? As we look to some of the findings of the MISO reliability report, and MISO is the energy grid operator for 15 states. It represents Indiana as well. It supports the state in the planning of its capacity resources and our ability to keep the lights on. The driving factors that we have in this uncertainty and dire situation, according to John Baer, who's the president of MISO, are the items listed here on the left. We have fleet change. We have coal facilities that are retiring, that at their end of life. We have uncertainty for the regulations and policies that continue to come out of Washington that have impacts for everyday users here in Indiana that we need to address. We have fuel economics with geopolitics at its greatest uncertainty and only going to continue with that uncertainty. We saw when the war in Ukraine broke out initially, there was a 234% price on natural gas. That was again felt first and most by Hoosiers on their energy bills. We have extreme weather events, load additions as it comes to electric vehicles, and finally incremental load growth for these big industrial manufacturing and data centers that are moving into Indiana. All of these together create a very significant and dire energy capacity need for all the states that we have in MISO, but particularly here in Indiana. There's a 27 gigawatt power shortfall by 2032 across those 15 states. 24% of it, 1/4, 6 gigawatts, the equivalent of powering 5 million homes, is what's at stake here in Indiana. The local grid operators, in a recent report, anticipate 26 days of rolling blackouts every year throughout MISO beginning in 2025. The reality is we need more energy resources. We have economic development. We have population growth. We have, again, the fleet change that we've all enumerated just now. If we do not continue to build and support energy projects that are available to come online as early as 2025, like what we have with Williams Energy Center, there's a critical need that will remain unaddressed. So thank you again for your consideration today. We've talked about a number of issues. Our team is ready and available to address any questions from the council and certainly from members of the Madison community. All of your concerns and questions are very important to us. Thank you.
Council, do you have questions for Ian before we move to the rest of the public hearing? Do those now. There'll be an opportunity afterwards as well to ask additional questions.
That's my mic. Is there a wireless microphone? Do you have any kind of concept of what it would take to power the state? How much land would need to be used in order to effectively produce solar energy for the state writ large?
Is the question how much to provide all of the electricity for the state?
Yeah, and look, I know that you probably don't have that, but really what I'm asking is to what extent, would we need to continue with solar as an energy resource in order to make it effective statewide? This is something that we're going to transition for a more reliable resource. We should have an idea of, the expanse needed to provide it.
Councilmember Storm, that's a fantastic question. We don't have an answer at what solar is needed at scale to meet the energy demand of the state, nor that capacity shortfall that we just discussed, which is again 6 gigawatts. But ultimately, conversations that we've been having with MISO, the state energy regulators, with the incoming administration, who are all hyper concerned about this issue, is that it's going to take an all of the above energy strategy and portfolio to address the needs that we're identifying here. And so solar is a small part of that mix. It's never going to be the entire solution, but ultimately, again, we're really focused on cost competitive, market-ready resources that can come online as quickly as possible, and so that is Williams Energy Center.
Thank you.
So is it my understanding that the power that you are going to put on the grid is already spoken for by a data center? Is that correct?
Thank you. So we have a contract with an incoming data center to provide the energy to that data center. That data center is right here in Indiana. We're in secondary contract negotiations with the utility, also based here in Indiana. And I think what's important again here is that we are providing energy reliability and generation to Sir Hoosiers. It's not going next door.
I understand, I hear you on that, but I guess when we talk about an energy crisis, which, basically what we might be facing, this is really not solving that in general because it's already spoken for someone coming into the state, obviously, and I get it from an economic standpoint, but it's not really helping the power situation we have in whole because it's already being taken. So we're not effectively making it better with this project. We're just helping sustain what we have.
Yes, the incremental load growth with that data center is not accounted for in that 6 gigawatt capacity shortfall. So ultimately, when you look to those projections, again, an all of the above energy solution will allow this project to serve that need to keep rates low and lights on here in Indiana. And you're going to need a lot more resources. We're just one part of a very complex puzzle that we're proud to be part of.
Okay, and then, so I got some other questions. So what happens if you sell the contract to this power plant?
So again, we've been operating since 2016, 35 projects online and in operation. Not one of those projects has even been contemplated to be up for sale. We're firmly committed to making sure that we build, own, and operate every single one of our assets. And again, no intention, nor will you see any kind of transfer of ownership on this project, particularly as we execute that 20-year contract with the local utility, as well as the data center that's moving into Indiana.
Okay, and along the same lines, if you were to go bankrupt, I know that you have a surety bond in for decommissioning if things were to go wrong. How long of a period of time is that surety bond in place for? 3 years?
The life of the project.
So if you were to go bankrupt in year 10 and you're 20 years from the 30, that would kick in.
Yeah, but I think the more likely scenario is that if we have a 20-year contract for the energy, which I think that's maybe a misconception about how we develop these. It's not a speculative development where we come out here and we say like, oh, we found some land, let me just build it and see if we can find somebody to buy the power, and maybe that's what happens. Before we ever break ground on anything, we have a full 20-year contract at a fixed rate to whoever's buying the power. So someone's relying on that power for 20 years, right? Most of the cost in utility scale solar is up front. So we've already spent the money, right? We've already spent the money. There's very little operating expenses when you are operating one of these projects. And so let's say in year 10, we have a 20-year contract for the power. In year 10, somehow we go bankrupt. The most likely scenario is that another company swoops in and operates the project, makes the revenue from it, and never had to pay what it took to build the project. So I think it's an unlikely scenario that during that 20-year contract that we have, that we would ever just become defunct. But yeah, if for some reason we did, that decommissioning bond would be there to recover that.
And then, noise during the day. I have read that there is noise. Obviously, it's generating power, so there is always that. And I've worked at the power plant, so I do understand, kind of the buzz that happens. So during the day, while that's on, what kind of noise could neighbors expect from this?
Neighbors won't hear it.
So they won't hear anything?
No.
Okay. And then the other thing is, what about employment, local employment? Will this create any jobs at all in Jefferson County?
Yes, there's a lot of temporary construction jobs, as I mentioned. There's a lot of expenditure up front. There's not a ton, we've been open and transparent about this, there's not a ton of full-time jobs once the project is operational. But we're not connected to water and sewer. We won't have people that are using the schools. We won't have people buying homes. It's a very passive form of energy development. And so while there's not a lot of jobs, it provides a lot of revenue while not putting a lot of strain on the system locally. And so we think that's a good deal for the county and the city.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got one microphone that's not working, so we've got to pass around here. Thank you for your presentation. Specifically relating to what the city of Madison and Jefferson County can expect to see from this project, what benefits to the local community will this project provide, short of being another plug in the power grid for Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's a, is this one? There you go. I do think that's a huge thing, right? I mean, it's important to keep the lights on, but outside of that, I mean, it's a huge personal property tax generator. The equipment that we put out there is very expensive, and the taxes that are levied on that equipment is going to provide a little over $20 million over the life of the project for Jefferson County. That goes to schools, that goes to roads, that goes to anything that the county decides that they want to put it towards. Additionally, I think we've shown in the last year that I've been out here that we want to be good corporate neighbors. We're sponsoring events. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to be a part. We're a diamond or platinum, whatever it is, the highest tier at the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to continue to be a part of events, continue to be a good neighbor. We plan to be here for the long term. This is not a short flip scenario where we come in, develop the project, and then flip it and never build it, right? We are here to build it, own it, and operate it. And if that's going to be the case, then we need to be a good neighbor, and that's what we plan to do.
I'll just quickly add that when you look to those 35 projects that are online and in operation, each of them has designation of funds to support the local community. We have not had the opportunity to dive into those conversations. We have to get past the permitting items and priorities before that. We would like to sit down with every single council member to ensure that we are understanding of the priorities of the municipality and ultimately investing accordingly.
What's the height of the screening trees and shrubs that you're going to be planting around these?
It's in the landscape plan. I can get you that information. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can get you that information.
That will be, I guess, planted as, there won't be saplings planted in the ground, right? They will be a few-year-old trees or something like that?
Yeah, right. It's going to be a few years old. It's not going to be like a tree that's tall. That kind of defeats the purpose of the landscape screening, so we'll make sure of that.
You said there was a third-party property value assessment done. Who paid for that?
We did.
Okay. How many employees will this project employ long-term, not short-term?
During the operation,
Yes.
1 to 2.
Will they be on site?
Most of the time, yes.
In the planning commission meeting, you said that it would be done remotely.
Monitoring is done remotely for the site, but we do have on-site staff.
Will we have the opportunity to review these leases and the terms that are in them?
There's a public memorandum filed at the courthouse that anyone can read.
Have you had discussions with the city and county about tax abatements for this project?
We have not.
Have you offered any form of payment in lieu of taxes as an economic development incentive to the city or county?
We have not, but we plan to.
Thank you.
Anything else from the council? I think we'll open this up for discussion from the audience, or not discussion, but again, if we can, try to direct all of your questions and comments to council members, and then they can come back and answer kind of the theme of concerns as they see it going forward. So I don't know how best to do this. Mayor, how do you want to do this? Do you want to operate from back to front, front to back, or just go through the list?
There were people who signed up to speak. I'm not sure I have a complete list. I have a list that actually starts on number 26. Is there?
Let's start, actually.
That's the start of it. If we want to keep some order to that, and we want to certainly welcome anybody who wants an opportunity to speak, as Joe was saying, please direct your comments to council. This is to help inform their decision-making. I'm not too hung up on the actual sign-up, but we will go through this and we'll make sure if your name's not called, we'll make sure you get up here anyway. Keith Bramwell. Hey, Mr. Keith, thank you for being here. I would just say that as we get into the public comment, please keep your remarks. And does that mic need to be turned on or is it on? All right, you're on. Just please, if you could, keep your comments concise and brief.
Keith and Victoria Bramwell, 4735 West Deputy Pike. We live 2.5 miles from Highway 7 on Deputy Pike. Near the corner of Deputy Pike and Highway 7 is the Welcome to Historic Madison sign. And as this project expands, I can see the solar panels just coming right on that. This sign says it's on a farm in a proposed solar project. How ironic would it be for a visitor coming to Madison to read this sign surrounded by solar panels? Madison has worked hard and long to preserve and promote the historic Madison riverfront, awarded with national honors for Main Street and historic homes. Would historic Madison and the beautiful riverfront even be here if the citizens had not said no a few years ago to a casino and hotel? So-called progress is not always a good thing, especially if it's not in the right place. Let me tell you my history. We live in Smyrna. The Smyrna Road Church, established in 1834, still has its doors open every Sunday. Impressive history also. At the top of those steps before entering the doors, you'd be able to turn to your east and see a solar field. Would this be allowed at the steps of the historic Lanier home? Our farm in Smyrna has been in the Bramwell family for over 100 years. Victoria and I built our home on this farm 47 years ago. Our son, his wife, and son live in the homestead house. This prime farmland has produced more than crops of corn and soybeans and tobacco and livestock. My grandparents, Homer and Ruth Bramwell, raised 3 sons, my father, Elvin, his 2 brothers, George and Everett, and a daughter, Nina, on this farm. All 3 of these young men served overseas in World War II. Nina was an RN nurse for 40 years at a VA hospital. My father wanted to preserve the farm, so he sent his Army pay home to help make the payments. This farm is now owned by myself and my wife, Victoria, and it has helped us to put our daughter through nursing school, who's now been an RN for almost 20 years. It also helped us put our son through college and then return to Madison to start his own family. Repeating again, these farms produce more than just crops. Former neighbors, Jay and Blanche Klein, both have since passed. The farm is in this solar project. Blanche was a teacher at Madison Schools, a career teacher. She established one of the most valued scholarships at the school, Joseph V. Klein Scholarship, from the proceeds of the farm that was theirs. And if my understanding is right, it's like $700,000 that she invested with, and so it would make more money than that at over $1 million. That's one family that contributed to this community off their family farm. So aren't family farms, so there again, family farms produce more than just crops. Concerning property and home values, this solar project will decrease the value in this area. We've all heard some point in our life someone say they just want to find a home and move and live in the country. But I have never heard someone say they want a home near a solar farm. For the best Madison and Jefferson County future, say no to rezoning our land. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I just graduated from Walker came today, just for this meeting. Tammy, who is a Purdue nurse, if I fall down, she's volunteered to drag me out of the way. I'm Robin Henderson, 614 East Main Street. We moved here 22 years ago from Washington, D.C. My education is physics, business, and electrical engineering. My last job, I was vice president of Sutron Manufacturing in Washington, D.C., a manufacturer of environmental monitoring equipment. In my job, I traveled the world. I've seen the worst pollution, I've seen the least pollution. The United States is in the middle of that, believe it or not, in my view, of 20 years of traveling. I do not agree with everything that HEC does, but on solar, they're spot on. They couldn't be more correct. We could banter all day about solar versus other power sources. Let me just say this. Solar does not burn 12,000 tons of coal a day. Plants such as IKE does. That's 12,000 tons of coal a day, putting pollutants into the air that you and I breathe. It does not have millions of tons of ash to dispose of. Unlike wind, it does not kill migratory birds. Unlike hydro, it does not prevent fish from spawning. We can't wait for nuclear, but even when it comes, if it comes, solar will still have a place. Solar is clean, very, very clean. Solar panels, as they said, was made out of silicon, the same thing the glass panels are made of. It's not an exotic mineral, it's not an exotic material. It's just the way they make it, and they make it out of very pure silicon instead of what they make glass of. Solar is not new. Einstein told us how it worked in 1905. And in the preceding time, unbelievable progress has been made in efficiency and manufacturing. It's moving so fast that we as a public, we can't keep up to it. When we read about it, it's probably a year past and it's no longer new technology. It's just moving that fast. And because of that, 25 years ago, if you recall, experts said Indiana is not suitable for solar. 25 years later, we're one of the 21 states that have adopted it, and we've adopted it successfully. Jefferson County the state of Indiana has 22 million acres. Jefferson County has 225,000 acres. No one would stand still to take a majority or even a sizable portion of that for solar. We're talking about 1,000 acres. That's the same amount of land that IKE occupies. They occupy 982 acres. Other counties have stepped forward. 7 counties have adopted solar in Indiana. But guess what? All of those solars are north of Indianapolis or north. Well, Indianapolis International Airport has the largest solar farm of any airport in the world. One of the largest solar farms in the world is located up in northwest Indiana in Stark County. It makes this one look insignificant. It's so big. There's only one that I know of in southern Indiana. That's down in Posey County, which is as far southwest as you can go, and it's a very small solar. That's it. Why is southern Indiana, why are we behind? I don't know, I can't answer that, but we need to move forward. A few years ago, Indiana got 92% of its electricity from coal. Now it's down to 52%. Something has to take that place. If it doesn't, we're going to be like California a few years ago, and we're going to be buying electricity from out of state at exorbitant prices. We can either take care of ourselves, or we can let someone else do it. I'm a Hoosier. I was born a Hoosier. I want to see us. I don't want to see us relying on Illinois or some other state at double the cost of electricity, and we can do it here. Excuse me a second. It's no longer a question of whether or not coal is going away. That's a settled question. We in Madison can't stop it. Indiana can't stop it. No one can stop it. It's happening. It may happen. We can delay it. We can delay it perhaps 25 years in Indiana, but it's going to happen. And the simple thing is, states that move first and move into the future are the ones that are going to go up the economic ladder. The ones that lag are going to go down. I don't want to see my kids and grandkids down at the lower end of the economic level where we can do something to move forward. And that forward is solar. We in Madison and Jefferson County, we've had some great opportunities that we let slip by. Jefferson Proving Grounds, for one. I could name a half a dozen. Let's not let this one slip away. These opportunities only come a generation or less, longer out. So I would like to see us move forward now and step into the future for us and our kids and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Hill. Richard Hill.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hill. I'm a lifelong resident of the Madison area, and I want to thank you for allowing us to make comments tonight. I'm going to be brief. Yay. The owners of
Richard,
the...
may just ask that when people come up and announce your name, please.
Pardon me?
Address as well, if you don't mind. Name and address, please. You
Oh,
mentioned
name
your
and address.
Yes.
Richard Hill.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. 230 South Payne Street, right behind the fairgrounds. I was going to mention that, but... And it is probably within 2 miles of the proposed project. The owners of the affected properties have signed pre-lease agreements with the solar developers, IPA, and are obviously in favor of the development. My belief is that those property owners should have the right to use their property for this purpose, so long as they are satisfied with the agreements that they have made with IPA. This project has the potential to bring millions of dollars to our community, regardless of whatever details are worked out regarding tax abatements, incentive payments made by IPA, etc. That's all to be worked out. Right now, Duke Energy is seeking approval for a rate hike that would add $42 to the average residential monthly bills. Most of this increase is due to Duke's heavy reliance on coal for generation of electricity. We need to diversify our sources of electricity in Indiana, excuse me, to mitigate these increases. Duke Energy just got a significant increase about 3 years ago. This competitive project is market ready and can serve Hoosiers as early as 2026, supporting Southern Indiana's increasing economic development needs. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Gary Anglia, am I pronouncing that right?
No, it's like the girl's first name, Angela.
Oh, Angela, okay. Sorry about that.
And a couple of these guys know me because we work together over Brody. Like I said, Gary Angela, I'm at 2777 North 850 West. I'm about 3 miles past the site. In fact, I just found out where the site was exactly just tonight. Background is born, raised in Indianapolis, left when I graduated college in 1978. I went to work at a little company called Intel Corporation, and then when I retired from there in 2001, I went directly into solar. I went into the actual components itself. Now this is SIGs, but and like I said, the streamlining on the crystallization of the silicon is a little better, quite a bit better, but you still have problems with it. I make the component itself, the module, which the module goes on the cell, and then the cell goes into the panel. So I worked for Solyndra, and remember that one, Alta Devices, Hanergy, Daystar. We make these components. Now, one thing in common about all these companies that I worked for, is China came over and bought us out. And then whenever things weren't working right, they close down the United States operations and they take it back over to China, which Energy and all those guys done. So then they don't have OSHA and EPA and all that kind of stuff they have to deal with, and they create it over there. Now, there again, it's still, like I said, the crystallization of silicon is a lot cleaner operation, but still through your plasma stream and through all the manufacturing areas, procedures. And it turns out to be a really brittle, like silicon is. And in hail, something like that, when it's going to hit it, it will create, if it hits right straight through it, it will create dust particles and pollution. Now, his number was right, about 95% is recyclable. That's the glass and the aluminum frame and the steel inside. But we're talking about the product itself, the 5%. It's really around 6.5%. But that product is not recyclable, and that's because it's an H4 hazardous material classified. But let's put it this way. I have to put it in the building, as Josh would know. I'm the construction manager, the architect. I have to design and produce buildings, H4 occupancy, to allow this to be manufactured in. So whenever you reverse it, the problem is with these things, high heat. They break down in high heat. They break down, they break. And so you've got, it reverts back to an H4 material that you're going to have to deal with 25, 30 years from now. And who's going to deal with that? And if there is breaks, you just don't clean it up and throw it in the trash. It's got to go to, I don't know where it goes here, but in California, I lived in California 40 years, it goes to Butterfield. And that's very expensive. All this stuff is very expensive. And you don't just clean it up and brush it up with a brush. You've got to dig up the dirt to a certain depth until they're satisfied, EPA is satisfied. So there's things to consider. And I don't really want that next to my house. I just built a new house. I don't want the value to go down like that. But I just don't want the wind to blow any kind of dust particles or any kind of things that could possibly happen. I mean, the possibility of it happening is, you know, we're in Indiana, we get hail. But we also get some hot heat, you know, some hot days and humid days, and this stuff breaks down. And especially through the, like I said, through the process, it's under heat, and it's under vacuum, and it's vacuum deposition. So whenever you heat it back up, it releases. So we just need to think about what we're doing here before we go too far, because this is not going to be fun whenever it comes to that point. And we're going to be supplying China with all this, you know, monies, because this is where this stuff's coming from. I saw their presentation of there's no people from China and Russia and Iran, but the product is coming from China. I don't know of a company that is U.S. based that creates this crystallization. You know, like I said, I lived in California for all these years. I don't know the company. They're all getting bought out and sent back over to China. So I just want everybody to think about what you're getting into, because 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you could be up in your eyeballs in debt trying to clean this mess up. And all at the same time, could be releasing cancer-causing particles into the air. So we need to be careful. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Lisa?
Hello, my name is Lisa Hammett. My address is 6126 North, 400 West. As a farmer and a landowner, I support solar. Solar will have a positive impact on our community. There's going to be an increase of revenue in the form of property tax that'll be more than double of what we're currently paying. There's a cap on the amount of property tax the county can collect. The increase of property taxes paid by the solar company or any other new business will help the community by keeping our property taxes down. Solar panels, unlike other businesses, do not put a strain on the county or the city's infrastructure. For instance, there's no increase in traffic, nor do they need our school systems. The lease payments made by the solar companies will find their way into the community through income taxes and our buying local goods and services. Currently, corn prices are down 50%. So we're taking a 50% haircut on our grain this year. From 2022, went down 50%. Soybean prices are also down substantially. A source of income not related to farming will help farmers pay their taxes, their insurance, make equipment and mortgage payments, and pay for their family's living expenses. A census by the Indiana Department of Agriculture from 2010 to 2022 showed a loss of farmland, but during the same time period showed an increase in production. The USDA showed that Indiana produced 597 million bushels of corn in 2012. In 2022, we produced more than 1 billion bushels of corn in Indiana. Those same increases in the production have resulted in a surplus of grain. One of the reasons we have low grain prices are this production. So I know people are worried about not having enough land, not enough farmland. We have plenty of grain, and our prices are way down. There's also, the Farm Service Agency will also pay us to set our crops aside so we don't farm because there's so much grain. The census data also showed a loss of approximately 350,000 acres in Indiana during that same time period. That's only 1.5% to 2% of the farmland. The primary cause was due to residential use around the edges of cities and suburban areas. The property requested to be rezoned, approximately 1,000 acres, of which 600 acres would be used for solar, is 1% of the farmland in Jefferson County. Solar panel leases will increase the likelihood the farm will remain farmland and not a subdivision or another development in future years. For those who are worried about losing farmland, we are in discussion with the solar company about raising sheep under the panels, an alternative form of farming our land. We will row crop the areas between the roads and the landscape buffers. As landowners, we all should have the ability to develop and use our land as we see fit, as long as our activity does not encroach upon our neighbors' ability to do the same. We paid for the land. We currently pay taxes on the land. We pay insurance and upkeep on the property. Yet, I'd say there's less than 1% of our city's county population that have shown up tonight to voice an opinion on what we can do with our land. I believe that is an infringement of rights as a landowner. Thank you for your time.
Sue Klein. Sue?
Thank you. My name is Sue Klein. I live at 2410 North, 533 West, Madison, Indiana. We are all here tonight because we are either in favor of turning prime farmland into industrial solar sites or we are not. I'm here to ask the council, the city council, to not change the zoning from R4 to agricultural. Almost 31 years ago, this city girl married a farmer. I have learned that a city girl or a city boy really have no inkling what goes into farming, and how could you until you live it. But if you're blessed like I've been, you would have witnessed a farmer, with God's help, who has stewarded the land that we farm to the best of his ability. Even at 70, almost 70, he is a lifelong learner. considering the role of cover crops, no-till, appropriate chemical application, and even this year working on installing buffer zones around the edge of fields that will provide habitat and improve the soil and water. We in Indiana may take for granted the fertile soil that we are surrounded by, but what we do here impacts the world. We are all dependent on each other. How we use our resources, soil, water, air, impacts those around us. I believe we have a duty here in this special place to serve our neighbor and country by protecting our prime soil from destruction. A farmer's job is to help feed the world and others, feed others in the world. And how will the next generation do that if we put solar panels on some of our nation's best farmland? I'm 68 years old, and I have always done my duty as an American citizen and that I vote at every election. But I've never gone door to door in a neighborhood to make a community aware of what is possibly about to change. But I have now. This past week, there was a number of us that went around with a petition, which I'd like to produce to you. And we have, I left that paper, I think, 236 individuals in our neighborhood around that you're planning to put this solar farm. So can I give this to you? These are copies.
One petition for
This is one petition. And let me tell you, when we were going out door to door, we are good and hard-working people that care about our community. We may not look like other communities, but that is what we are. And we have decades-long and even generations-long friendship and loyalty to one another. And let me tell you, our community does not want to be surrounded by this industrial development. I didn't meet one person that wanted it. Let me be clear, I'm not against solar energy. I believe that with proper planning, it has a role in our future. I am against this proposal trying to change our neighborhood. I am against rushing this through without making every effort to reach out to the people in our community to plan properly and address concerns. This will have great impact on us now and for generations. Let us not be short-sighted and persuaded by the money. In this jar is some soil that I collected from one of our farms today. This came from prime farmland. God is not making any more prime farmland. Please protect it.
Am I reading this right? Sam Carpenter? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Sam Carpenter. I'm Executive Director with the Hoosier Environmental Council, 3951 North Meridian Street, Indianapolis. Hoosier Environmental Council has been advocating on behalf of Indiana's environment for 41 years across the state. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Tonight I want to invite you to consider what Madison, Indiana, Jefferson County as a leader in sustainable energy. This project is more than a commitment to Jefferson County's future. It's one that more than just solar panels. It's something that the county, the city could benefit from by embracing the change that's coming to our electric grid. Indiana is experiencing an energy transition. Growth in energy demand is upon us. We are seeing growth that we haven't seen for decades. Advanced manufacturing, data centers, artificial intelligence, electrification of our homes and our businesses, growth in electric vehicles, all that is happening right now. And we do have a concern with not having enough energy generation to meet this growing load demand. At the same time, many of our utilities are moving away from coal-fired generation. And this is a good thing from the standpoint of the Hoosier Environmental Council. This is a good thing because coal is not only one of the costliest forms of electricity, it is also the dirtiest form of electricity. With unlined coal ash ponds in Indiana, Indiana has more unlined coal ash ponds than any state in the nation. That seeps into our groundwater. Burning coal dirties the air that we breathe, leading to health problems, and the heat-trapping gases that impact our weather, forest fires, and the severity of storms. What were the 10 hottest years on record? They were the last 10, with 2023 being the hottest, and 2024 already currently on track to be hotter than 2023. So I'm with the Hoosier Environmental Council. These things are very important to me. Maybe that's not what motivates you. So I want you to consider also other benefits. So there are essential needs around the stability of our power supply. We need more power. And we need, the need for more power comes with the opportunity for communities and counties that are well situated for it. One of the things that makes a place well situated for solar is the ability to interconnect to the grid. Now, somebody referenced the 350,000 acres that have been lost, primarily over 70% of it lost to residential development. Now, Indiana has over 18 million acres of farmland. To meet what we have currently, and the projection for the next 5 years, we would need less than 0.5% of Indiana's farmland to meet the projected growth in renewables for the state. Already, vast amounts of Indiana's corn crop is going to ethanol, about 43% in 2023. So I ask you, why don't we let farmers choose to gain energy from the sun instead? So Jefferson County stands to benefit from this tax revenue, and Indiana and the region stand to benefit from much needed solar power. We will all feel the consequences of higher energy rates from Duke Energy and other utilities if we are not able to get more power onto the grid. Solar is the most affordable source of new electric power. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a Josh Baer? Is that right? Pronounce your name right? Bain. Thank you.
Thank you, council members, mayor, and staff. My name is Josh Bain. I am the Indiana Director for Community Outreach for the Center for Energy Education. Our nonprofit is located in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina at 460 Airport Road. I live here in Indiana. We also have other staff that live in Indiana. My address is 6228 Trotter Road. Our nonprofit is committed to providing accurate information about renewable energy, particularly solar energy, to help communities and its leaders such as yourselves make the most informed decisions possible. Tonight, I'd like to briefly address some of the common concerns about utility-scale solar project. Research indicates that the visual impact of solar farms can be minimalized with appropriate landscape buffers, leading to little to no negative effect on nearby property values. Regarding safety, the electromagnetic fields, often referred to as EMFs, emitted by solar panels are far lower than those from everyday devices like cell phones. Additionally, modern panels are sealed and designed to endure extreme weather, ensuring both safety and environmental protection. It's also important to note that solar panels are primarily made of silicone, a non-toxic material that is abundant and safe for the environment. Indiana currently imports 13% of its energy from other states, highlighting the need for locally produced, sustainable energy sources. Solar energy offers a viable solution to this challenge by helping reduce our reliance on external energy sources by contributing to a resilient, self-sufficient energy grid. Just like we want our country to be energy independent, we also want our state and our local communities to be as energy independent as possible as well. There's also no evidence that solar panels have any negative impact on local weather patterns, and they have actually been proven to help reduce temperature fluctuations by absorbing sunlight. Beyond these concerns, utility-scale solar projects bring significant economic benefits, contributing substantial tax revenue, supporting local infrastructure, and enhancing grid stability, which helps to keep energy costs down for everyone. In closing, I just encourage you to review the extensive data supporting benefits of solar energy. And our organization, our nonprofit, we don't really get involved in the rezoning process or anything like that. As I said previously, we're just here to provide as much accurate information as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Wilson. Erica Wilson.
My name is Erica Wilson, and I live at 3023 North, 533 West, Madison, Indiana, 47250. Okay, so first of all, I have to say this: none of us are against solar or green energy. We're not that way. But I have to rebut just a couple things right off the top here. Rural people have been treated as acceptable collateral damage or breakage, if you will, for decades in this country's history. To hear farm acres described as it is just some kind of endless commodity to be traded and bought and sold has been painful to me. I am the daughter of farmers since early in this country's history. Our home places are not interchangeable cogs in the wheels of progress. Now to our regularly scheduled programming. For some in this room, this zoning change is about what they think is an economic development opportunity. For some, it's about personal profit, and still others say it's about green energy. But for a lot of us here, it is about our homes. My husband and I moved here intentionally. Our small homestead on Harvards Creek was the realization of a long-held dream. After years of working and saving, we could finally buy a home. And we chose to buy that home here in Madison. I was born here, left, and chose to come back. When we decided to live here, we thought we were moving to a place that had hit on the right mix of rural and cosmopolitan, forward-thinking, but that valued its history. The proposed zoning change before you will alter the landscape and the community for generations to come. It will fundamentally change the character of this place for 50 years or more. It will pull apart a neighborhood, and we are a neighborhood. Have you ever shared with family a peach cobbler made from scratch? The peaches grown at the Goalies Orchard right next to Clifty Falls? Have you looked in a man's eyes and listened as he talked with pride about his family's history here in Madison on Chicken Run Road? Seen his wife talk lovingly about her children and grandchildren and what she hopes for their future here? Seen the beautiful pollinator gardens at folks' home places out on Deputy Pike and 7? Or on mine, for that matter? Climbed a fence to help your neighbor as he searches for a lost calf or dog or horse or cell phone. Have you sat on the porch on a summer evening with your friend down the way who is facing having all the land surrounding their home changed irrevocably for the rest of their lives, while they're also battling a health crisis, but have still managed to ask you how you are first? I have. Since the Plan Commission meeting in June where we first tackled the zoning issue, I have been blessed and lucky to get to know my neighbors and community even better than I already did. We're all connected. Our society tells us we can go it alone and be islands unto ourselves, but we cannot. We learned that well and good during a pandemic. What hurts one of us hurts all of us eventually, whether we live on Main Street or out on 533 West. It's no accident that the words humus, meaning soil, and human, us, come from the same Latin root, meaning earth. The word humility comes from that same root too. Humans are not separate from the land. We are very much a part of it and very much a part of one another, and good leaders understand this and the magnitude of their decisions and lead with humility, considering both. You don't get rid of land. They don't make any more of it. And the plants and animals and people who live on the land in question matter too, not just how much money somebody can make off of it. If this zoning change goes through and solar is allowed to move into Jefferson County, it will destroy our home places. So I ask you, is Madison clean, safe, and beautiful only for some or for all? We ask that you listen to the people who live here, not out of state or corporate interests, when making any decision about rezoning our home places. Uphold the correct negative recommendation of the Plan Commission and keep us zoned R4. Save our home places and livelihoods. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Wilson, 3023 North, 533 West, Madison. I'm a homesteader and foreman of a local landscape company. My neighbors and I insist that our community stays zoned low-density residential and residential ag. Changing large plots to ag with an industrial variance will negatively impact our homes and quality of life. Property values will go down, our environment will decline, and prime farmland by definition will be destroyed, and there will be flooding. In my professional experience, these construction sites will change the soil from a sponge to a countertop. Where does this water go now? Big Clifty Creek runs through our prized state park, and Harbors Creek runs by countless homes, including my own. What other areas will be prone to flooding? Our watershed will be greatly altered. Conversely, what happens in a drought when the topsoil has been stripped for more than 1,000 acres, a dust bowl? There is ample evidence of this at other solar sites. Landscape perimeters will not be maintained as promised. It would take a full landscaping crew to do that for 1,000 acres on the perimeter, not just 1 or 2 permanent employees the site would hire. Native grasses need full sun to adequately grow underneath structures, so that promise is also hollow. Any out-of-state investor backed by $1 trillion investment firm, by definition, has only one goal: making a profit. It is what they do. A snake will bite no matter how many times it says it won't. Our representatives need a plan for this land instead of making knee-jerk decisions pressed by corporate entities waving around dollars. We are putting the cart before the horse here. Instead, we need to preserve our neighborhoods and communities. I represent the next generation of local farmers, homesteaders, and land managers. Preserve our land and preserve our homes so we can thrive. And I'm going to read the 14th Amendment. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within this jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. Thank you.
Teresa Licklider. Pronounce that right? There we go.
Teresa Licklider, 3366 North, 600 West, Madison. My grandparents bought a farm on the Deputy Pike almost 100 years ago. It's located in the buffer zone, right in between two of the farms proposed for this rezoning. My family still owns the farm, and we intend to pass it on to our sons and grandchildren. We know a lot of people who live in the area who are our friends and neighbors. The neighborhood will soon be gathering to celebrate the annual Neville's Grove Old Settlers event. This community gathering has been going on for 139 years. Solar will affect the quality of life for the people in this community. It is not clean, safe, and beautiful to align with the city of Madison bottom. The county government needs a plan in place for land use before making any zoning changes. They need a plan in place to use Jefferson County land to the advantage of a majority of the people. This area should stay in the R4 zone for residential, since there are over 300 residents within a mile of the proposed zoning change. I did an online search to find a safe distance to live from a solar farm. I found a variety of distances, with 1.2 miles being cited the most. However, they also stated that this is new technology, so we really don't know what a safe distance would be. I used the Brave search engine since Google does not include many solar disadvantages. Over 6,000 residents live within 3 miles of this area. It is a residential area. Solar should be on land away from residents. We need to keep this area clean, safe, and beautiful in order to attract young people to stay in the area. I urge you to keep the Deputy Pike and Chicken Run area in the R4 low-density residential zone.
Savannah Stout.
Good evening, I'm Savannah Stout. I live at 916 North Thompson Road. I've got a lot to say, so I'm just going to read off my paper real quick. The following comments are in response to the proposed zoning change from R4 residential ag to agricultural and for the Deputy Pike and Chicken Run Road parcels. Sorry, let me fix this. This and other proposals have been submitted because they are convenient due to willing landowners, not because they are suitable. This is a poor site selection. I've heard resilience listed at least two times tonight. The Nature Conservancy's Resilient Landscape Mapping Tool, which is intended to provide screening level information to help inform conservation planning actions, delineates the acres within the proposed development as less or least resilient acres. Why invest in an expensive installation on acres not predicted to be climate smart in the future? Why not repurpose the vacant industrial lands that are more suitable, or the agricultural lands surrounding these already converted areas, rather than remove the opportunity of prime farmland to serve its intended function? Comments have been made tonight about the abundance of grain, the not wanting to grow corn, but farmland isn't just corn or soybeans. Be a farmer, grow something beneficial for the community. According to the 2023 publication titled Solar Energy Driven Land Cover Change Could Alter Landscapes Critical to Animal Movement in the Continental United States, which was published in the Environmental Science and Technology Journal, it suggests the construction of a solar facility may include or involve the conversion of existing land cover to a highly managed industrial land cover. In some cases, development can drive wholesale transformation of all biophysical capacity of land to an industrial, energy-producing, and often abiotic landscape. The conventional preparation of a solar facility commonly involves the removal of standing vegetation, soil grading and compaction, and fencing and road construction. Therefore, depending on the type of development, solar energy expansion can increasingly conflict with conservation priorities. In addition to land cover change, solar facilities must be fenced to comply with the National Electric Code, creating a barrier that may be difficult for terrestrial wildlife to traverse. This refers to Rule 110 of the National Electrical Safety Code that access must be restricted to authorized personnel. This is recognized as an American national standard and has been adopted in most of the U.S. The following statement is from the Indiana NRCS webpage. NRCS is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Perhaps the greatest threat to wildlife is habitat loss through lack of management, invasive plants, and habitat conversion or destruction. The project proposes the likelihood of all three of these things. Although the proposed acres of the Smyrna project consist of prime farmland, the majority of these soils are somewhat poorly drained. As a local wildlife biologist who works in this county, who designs native seeding specifications in this neighborhood, it would cost nearly $300 an acre to establish suitable natives meeting these wet mesic conditions and are tolerant of partial shade. These species will reach variable heights, but reproductively, so with their seed heads, will exceed the 3 to 5 foot proposed panel position heights. Permeable fencing and not chain link is recommended for use throughout the facility to create corridors of movement for wildlife. Otherwise, the outcome is the fragmentation and exclusion of these acres from wildlife. Additional justification of this concern is present throughout the publication that I mentioned above, stating negative impacts of solar development on ungulates, which are deer, including barrier effects on both resident and migratory populations have been observed, as well as direct and indirect habitat loss. Volant species, which are those that can fly, may be less at risk for PV-driven disruption of movements and migration. However, mortality of volant species due to impacts with solar infrastructure have been observed. Mammals could lose access to all or portions of home ranges and have migratory pathways disrupted and are more likely to experience adverse effects from solar development. Southern Indiana was historically deciduous forest. Any landowner around here can tell you that if you cease disturbance, and this scenario is farming, you're going to quickly revert to forest. Pioneer woody encroachment in the form of red maple, sycamore, cottonwood, tulip poplar, sweet gum, other species, including invasive species, can form dense canopy in a matter of 5 to 8 years and will attempt to reclaim ground. These are going to need annual maintenance. Grazing goats has been mentioned to maintain the proposed acreage. Although goats forage native herbaceous species, native species take longer to establish as they sleep, creep, then leap. It takes about 3 years. Introduced forages are often used to supplement nutritional needs of these goats and provide year-round forage. However, these often outcompete and lead to failure of native plantings. Goats at this scale would require a grazing management plan to implement successful rotational grazing. This involves the movement of portable fencing and water resources on a routine basis. If not removed from the units, the goats themselves, the panels then become the shelter for these goats. And goats enjoy climbing.
Excuse me. We've done a really good job staying around 5 minutes, and you're several minutes over that. If one of you could, if you could.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm almost there. Sorry.
We'll do that, and then we'll get to the other remarks. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Goats enjoy climbing, getting into trouble, and causing damage. 2 employees will not maintain the proposed compliance standards that was listed on today's PowerPoint. The landscape of this neighborhood consists of large stretches of forested acres interrupted by farmland and grasses, and supports diverse wildlife, including at-risk species. I've seen bald eagles whose populations are rebounding, northern bobwhite, solitary sandpipers, cuckoos, which are all state-listed species of concern. The surrounding contiguous forested acres also provide suitable habitat for tree-dwelling species of bat, many of which are federally threatened. Eastern box turtles are present and are a state species of special concern. Monarchs, other threatened pollinators also live here. People live here. This is residential ag. The people who live here also work here and love it here. We are not investors in Texas. If you are going to do something, do it right, but this is not right. The statement was made that the request to rezone was to better reflect the use of land, then leave it as residential ag.
Yes, so I've been asked if you've got long remarks like that, if you'd like to submit those in writing. Many of you have submitted letters for and against. All of those have been shared with council. Some have been directly sent to council. You can still do that. All of their email addresses are online. If you do have long remarks tonight, please just abbreviate your remarks and submit your comments to council for attention. Thank you. Adam Stout.
Hi, my name is Adam Stout. I live at 916 North Thompson Road. I'm not directly adjacent to the proposed rezoning and industrial solar installment project, though I'm certainly close. We've heard lots of arguments today, and I think these are all very valid concerns, deserve to be heard fairly and taken seriously by the representatives of the people. I'm going to speak a bit more abstractly. The biggest concerns of mine are the welfare of the community, impacted landowners, and the ability of the Madison area to retain its unique nature, unique history, and unique culture in the current environment. My wife and I moved here just several years ago, so we're probably still considered newcomers. But I'm a lifelong Hoosier, having spent my entire adult life within a quick afternoon drive to this area. I love Indiana, I love the uniqueness of southern Indiana, and I especially love the unique history of Madison. Because of that love, I have a desire to see Madison move into a future in a way that both improves life for the residents at large, but also retains the heritage of a river town surrounded by agriculture. It is this last point where I'm concerned of a precedent being set that will be impossible to roll back. I've had the opportunity to speak with numerous people who live adjacent to or are directly impacted by the proposed rezoning. People who grew up here, have families here, perhaps inherited family land, are still working and plan to leave to their children and grandchildren. These are heritage Madisonians. I've also spoken to several people who have moved here more recently, like my wife and I have, and did so specifically because they value the culture of the area and have a desire to see it continue. These are heritage Madisonians at heart. I'm of the opinion that these people represent a forgotten majority, and when I've spoken to both these groups of people, I've heard their pain and concerns. I've seen community infighting that this project has already caused, and it would break my heart to see a major project such as this be a slap in the face to so many heritage Madisonians for half a generation. I think this alone is cause to pump the brakes and delay any decision that would move controversial projects forward. I'll tell you what, in the effort of brevity, I'll leave it at that.
Kevin Horde, did I pronounce that right? Reading handwriting, that's why I'm questioning it sometimes.
My name is Kevin Ward. I live at 4693 West Deputy Pike. I stand before you tonight not just as a resident of Jefferson County, but as someone deeply connected to a legacy that has been cherished for over a century. In 1920, my great-great-grandfather, Marshall Ward, made a significant decision and purchased a property and farmhouse driven by a dream to create a family legacy rooted in the fertile soil of this land. His vision was carried forward by his sons Ernest and Dick, who worked this land with pride and dedication, installing it in not just the crops, but the heart and soul of our family. As time went on, my father sitting here with us tonight, took up the torch. And through his hard work, he passed his passion down to me. Now, as a fourth generation of Hords to live and work this land, I am committed to passing it on to my children, making them the fifth generation on the same place. I've lived my whole life on this property. I've grown up hearing the stories of my family and the deep love we have for this land. I know this land better than most, having lived through the highs and lows of farming it. Many of my relatives have found their final resting places on these farms, a testament to their love and unwavering dedication of the farm. I understand that not everyone feels the connection to the land, but for some of us who were born into farming, it becomes part of our very soul. It's not just about growing crops, it's about preserving a way of life, a tradition, and a community. Tonight, I ask you to join us in preserving this heritage. Please reject the proposed rezoning of the buffer zone to support a negative recommendation from the City Plan Commission. This buffer zone is vital to maintaining the character of our rural community. Turning it into a 1,000-acre industrial solar complex on prime farmland would not only change the landscape, but also threaten the homes and livelihoods of everyone around us. The land is more than just property. It's a living testament to our history, our hard work, and our dreams for future generations. Let us honor this legacy by protecting it from changes that would fundamentally alter who we are. Thank you for your time, understanding, and commitment to preserving the heart of our community. Vote no to amend the zoning map for the industrial solar and cherish our farms. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Licklider. Andrea Licklider. Thank you.
Good evening. Andrea Licklider, 5749 West, 400 North. My husband's family has owned land on the Deputy Pike for almost 100 years. This property is still owned and actively farmed by our family. He and his brother will one day inherit this property, and it will eventually be passed down to our daughters. My husband grew up in this area, and we have chosen to raise our family in this community. I am the minister of Smyrna Monroe Presbyterian Church. As Mr. Bramwell pointed out at the beginning of our speaking, our church neighbors this buffer zone. We are the closest place of worship to the two farms proposed for rezoning, and families in this community have worshiped in this place for nearly 100 years. There are nearly 6,000 residents in this community, which we consider to be some of Jefferson County's most beautiful rolling countryside. The placement of industrial solar on this land would detract from this beauty and take farmers away from farming. Construction of an industrial scale solar operation requires the removal of trees, brush, and root balls prior to installation, creating an ecological wasteland. The reality is that while the solar project may last 30 to 40 years, the rural land will be lost forever. We want our daughters to have the opportunity to grow up enjoying this beautiful community we so dearly love, and to have the ability to continue farming this land for generations to come if they so choose. For these reasons, we respectfully ask that you keep our community zoned in the R4 low-density residential zones and the residential agricultural zones. This is a true residential farming community, and it should remain as such. Solar has its place, but its place is not in our backyard. Thank you.
Kenneth? Can't pronounce it. Is it Kenneth Ord? Second, Mr. Ward.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. My name is Kenneth Horde, and I live at 317 Highland Drive, but I own property on the Deputy Pike where the rest of my family lives. This proposed solar farm would be right next to my property. If this proposed solar farm were to go in, it would change the character of our whole community. Even if the ground is zoned agricultural, in my opinion, it would be like living next to an industrial park. That's why I urge that you reject this zoning change. Thank you.
Rodney Black. Rodney?
Evening, Council. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I'm Rodney Black. I live at 2188 North Birchton Road. I also represent my mother that lives at 3473 Chicken Run Road. She'll be 94 in 3 weeks. So I'm also representing her because it will affect her directly right across from her house. Our family has had to deal with zoning and building things out in our area starting back in the early 1900s. When the State Road 62 Clifton Drive went through, my uncle's property got redone and some of his land got taken away for the new road to go through. Also, when they widened it here in the last several years, all the material from when widening the roads, they took and placed it along our property lines, and we had to redo our ditches and so on and so forth. Of course, with the electric going through, we've got all the power lines that's gone through. One particular set of power lines went through when I was in high school that went for the nuclear plant out at Marble Hill. That they tore up our land. We had to redo a lot of things. My dad had a lot of expense taking care of that. So, and then of course with the airport expansion, the city bought part of black people or black farms, a total of 8 acres from my sister and my father to allow for that to expand. Now we also have the wonderful fence that we call, lack of a better term, Madison International Airport. Just to have fun with it. I love watching the planes coming in and out, but you guys on the council don't have to sit there and look at that fence every morning you wake up. So now with the property beside us that's going to be having the solar panels will also be another thing that I will have to look at because of things changing. That's the reason why I want to keep the R4 in place to prevent this from happening. Our family has given so much back to this community from the black family, starting with my dad being a county council, my brother being county council, also helping the underprivileged with the Boys Club and Boys and Girls Club. My mother also was a teacher for OVO for underprivileged. My sister Julie was a teacher that taught special needs children. My sister Mary took and made sure that there was a playground for all children. And then my family and my twin brother give back to the community every day by being first responders for this community. My brother, myself, and my 3 children are all certified fire, rescue, first responders, EMS, we do it all. And it seems like every time I turn around, we do more for the community. Not only do we do that, we also keep the ditches looking nice for when people are coming to the airport. In case you don't know who mows all that, we do. So to take away all of our stuff little by little with this solar panel, to me is unacceptable. And I'm standing here for what the Constitution says, we the people. So please, keep it R4.
Okay, move on. Greg Stoner. Greg Stoner. Okay, thank you. Jill Corn? Jill Corn, no. Mary Law?
Hi, my name is Mary Law. I live at 4199 North 500 West. I am in the Smyrna Township. My husband and his son farm approximately 1,600 acres. 1,300 of that 16 we lease. So our main concern is if this goes through, the people that we're leasing our land from, they could get a lot more money from the solar people, and then how are we going to raise our crops? That's how we make our living. And I just wanted to bring that point up because I hadn't heard anybody mention that tonight. So thank you.
Adam King. Adam still here? Keith Hicks. Mamie Orr?
I'm Kath Hicks.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kath Hicks. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm Kath Hicks, and I live at 3438 North 300 West. I can't say anything more eloquently than what most everybody has said. I have met with a couple of the council members to convey my concerns. As a property owner, owning 5 acres that's right across the street from where some of this is going to go in. That was my retirement home. We bought it. We've invested in it. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. We invested in it so that when we were no longer able to make a farm work because we were too old, that we could sell it and make a profit that would help us towards our retirement. One of the things that I would like to say is, as council members, you are responsible for making some decisions that will negatively impact me financially, and I have no say in that because I am in the buffer zone. So as someone who has no voice in this, I appreciate that I have the opportunity tonight to speak to you. But I would also like to ask that as one of your constituents, that you do represent, and I'm assuming you do represent us even in the buffer zone, even though we can't vote for you. Is that correct?
We are representing, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, this council is hearing all the public comments tonight.
But are we considered one of your constituents in the buffer zone?
You are not a City of Madison resident, but everybody here has a voice that this council and the mayor is listening to. Yes.
No vote, and I understand that. But as your constituents who don't have a vote.
And let me just make one other clarification too. The Board of Zoning Appeals does have members appointed by the county who do live in the buffer zone. So there is a process as you go through with the Plan Commission as well as the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Didn't mean to make
Just
anybody
clarify.
defensive.
Yeah, no, just clarify.
What I'd like to say though is, as someone who doesn't have a say in any of this from a legal standpoint, to be able to vote for the people that represent me and make these decisions, I would like you all to just remember, we are your constituents and we are your responsibility too, and we need your help. We don't need to have our property values devalued. We don't need to lose money when we go to sell our properties. One of the things that I have not heard, the town, the county, the state, the people leasing this land are all going to benefit from that financially. As our representatives, if we can't fight this and it goes through, at least consider holding them accountable for at least compensating us for the negative impacts that we're going to experience and suffer. Thank you.
Sean Hammond.
My name is Sean Hammond. I live at 2990 North Borshadine Road there in Madison. It's the second house back from Deputy Pike, so about as far north on that road as you can get. Me and my family have lived there for about 23 years. It's been a lot of years putting a lot of money investing in our home and our property, just like everybody else in here does. Regardless of what is said as far as how it impacts property, when you do some research, not just a few minutes, but weeks worth of research, there is an impact to our property. Nobody can tell us exactly how much, and that's fine, I understand that. Low end, if you read, is 2.5%. Upper end is much more than I expected, but you see as much as 10%. I wouldn't expect to see that. But regardless of the fact, I do expect it to impact my property value. So 2.5% of what I've worked for the last 23 years, that's a lot of money. Money that I'm not going to get back. I'm not going to get it back in reduced payments for energy, because we're not going to see that. That's going somewhere else. It's not going here. Duke is still going to ask for their 16%, and I'm still going to have to pay it. So that's another loss. I did notice sitting here tonight that, with one exception, that everybody that was for it doesn't have it right next to their house. It's not right next to their property. They're not being directly affected like we are. So that's another thing to consider. I hope you guys will consider it. And one other thing I wanted to bring up was, if you look at the solar panels, I've been doing this a long time. I'm an electrical guy, automation controls guy. I've been doing it for 30 years. So I have some experience with this. Today's solar panels, at best, get 23% efficiency, at best. That's when they're new. As they age, that efficiency goes down. It goes down to approximately 15 to 17%. Then there's a time to change it out. But it seems like a really poor exchange for 600 acres of land and reducing our property values and putting the health risk that's involved with this. So I'd like for y'all to consider that, because I can't afford the loss. I really can't. I'm sure most of my neighbors can't afford this loss either. So that's kind of what I've got to say. Thank you.
Brian Brewer. No, Brian Brewer. Oh, Regina Johann? Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. Sorry about that.
Nervous. Brian Brewer, 1520 Clearwood Trail, New Albany, Indiana. You say, why is this guy from New Albany up here? Well, we live downstream from Madison. We have 9 million tons of coal ash. Duke Energy's leaving down there. We know what that coal ash is already in the groundwater, which is a real problem. If I was a farmer or had a well south of New Albany, I'd be concerned. And this is according to their own statistics on their testing of their wells, on the testing on the water. So I'm concerned because I have 5 grandchildren. We're all going to be dead 20 years or so, but our families are going to be here a long time. And we need to look towards the future with this earth that God has given us to take care of, and think more about just about ourselves in this moment we're in right now, and be concerned a little bit more down the road with our families, our children, our grandchildren, Michael, Raphael, Lily, Annie, and Gabriel are my 5 grandchildren. And that's what I'm concerned about, and that's why I'd like to see solar energy be used more often. Now, I can't say, you guys got to decide for yourselves here. There's great arguments on both sides here. I think you guys, I would like to see you guys move to solar. I want to see Floyd County move to solar more. Part of the problem is our state has made it harder for people to do that individually. And therefore companies come in and they do these big, large projects like this, which take up a lot of land. So I'd like to see anybody here call their representatives to say, hey, we want net metering brought back to Indiana. We want people to be able to make money off their solar. Now I know it is related to what you're doing, because the projects you could get done on your homes, people doing it themselves, would not require such a large amount of land to use. And I'm going to make some people upset with me that are really environmentalists. I'm an environmentalist. I care about our environment for our future, for our families, our future generations. But I just want to see that possibility to be brought back to Indiana. Indiana is so dependent on coal that the legislature won't make moves to support solar. And businesses would be booming with it. And you could have solar in your community in ways that you wouldn't see it everywhere, your public buildings. I'm hoping to take that message back to my community. And so we don't make the mistakes that I think we could be made here. with the solar projects, which from what I've heard, I am concerned about the farmers and legacy. I don't want that to happen to our farmers in our area. And, but I do want us to move to solar. I really think we need to do that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Regina Johan.
Hi, I'm Regina Johan. I live 140 Lakeside Drive. I am one of the people, as written in Article 1, Section 1 of the Indiana Constitution. The people have assembled together and sent you notice declaring and claiming our inherent right to acquire, possess, and to protect our private property, as written in our fundamental laws. There is no constitutional provision granting lawmakers, trustees, and servants the authority to presume subject matter jurisdiction over the people's inherent right of property. The people claim that any actions done by lawmakers, trustees, and servants that creates an injury of any kind to the people's private property shall be an act of maladministration. God said if you raise up a servant gently, you will end up with a son. The people do not want you acting in maladministration and as such have given you notice of the danger of acting in maladministration. There are no statutory limitations on fraud and jurisdiction, and the people have the inherent right to make claims of injuries to their private property as a result of maladministration. These claims can be made at any time, whenever the injury is realized. For government officials are accountable to the people in a legal way at all times. The people's notice was sent with the love and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ, so that lawmakers, trustees, and servants will provide due care to those who have all power, the people. The people's authority is written in Article 1, Section 1 of the Indiana Constitution. Our authority is endowed by God, and no government official, corporation, man, or woman can breach this oath of trust. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. David Reed.
My name is David Reed. I live at 2540 North Borkton Road. Grew up in business, so I understand the business end of this. And I understand that you're trying to make decisions based on what you determine to be the best for this community. Now, I've sat back there, and I'm going to give you a little different perspective. I'm not a lifelong Madison resident. Been here shortly, a little more than 5 years. It's a beautiful community. I love the way it's laid out. I love the way that it sticks together. And I love the way it brings people together to show off its wares. I think I'm looking at, since I'm not giving a passionate speech about my homeland that's been here for 300 or 400 years, which is incredible. But I also know that you're going to have to look at things in a way that you're going to have to take care of the people that you represent. Now, I've not really heard exact figures as to what is going to benefit this community. Now, I know business, when it's trying to advance, it will try and throw out figures to make you be enticed. But get rock solid stuff, okay? Don't sit here and think that the figures that they're throwing at you are going to be exact, because they will not be. questions that I have for this corporation is the time frame. Once everything, if it's okay, when this project starts, when will the project be completed? And then what's the commissioning time? Because that's going to affect the neighborhood in a stark way. It's going to increase traffic for construction. It's going to, well, let me be honest with you. I originally grew up in northern Indiana, and it was pretty flat. And the roads are laid out in squares. They're not hilly, and they're not winding, and they're not narrow. They're pretty wide. So when you start bringing construction equipment, that's going to affect the way these people get to their homes. So bear that in mind. Now, these people running this corporation, they're not here to change anybody's mind. They're just here to present themselves, because that's their job. And there's nothing against them, because they're trying to make a living just like we are. The other thing, I guess, about the corporation would be, at the end of 25 years, the property, I'm assuming, is being leased to them. What happens to that lease? As far as paying property taxes, if you're not doing it by your farming efforts, I'm not sure that we should be responsible for your property taxes. And if you think that's incorrect, then I'd be more than welcome to have you come and help pay some of mine. And I grew up in a business, a family-owned business, and I'm pretty sure that there's probably not more than 2 or 3 people here that even know what it is. It's a rendering plant. Now, rendering plants aren't known for a quality smell. So I've dealt with environmental management, both from the EPA and the I&I down, Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And the funny thing about those people, we've had different government people come in here or related to them come in and speak this evening, is the one side of the Indiana Department of Environmental Management wants you to have clean air. The other side wants you to have clean water. Well, the clean water guys don't care how you do the air, they care about the water. The clean water guys don't care about the air, they care about the water. So, you know, back and forth. I don't know if I said that right. But you find yourself chasing your tail. Now, when government is involved, it's never a cut and dried thing. You all represent your government, which makes you public servants. So outside government people have an effect here because you have to contend with them. Outside corporations have an effect here because you want to contend with them. If I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this solar farm was going to bring in a lot of revenue to this community, it would be worth looking at. But I've not heard that. I don't know that's going to bring tax breaks to anybody. I don't know that's going to bring a lot of money in for you to start making major improvements or something like that. What I do know is that it's going to affect what people see when they come to this community. When I came to this community, I didn't see solar panels. I saw green, beautiful, environmental, river, all of that. And it makes a place more desirable to come and live in. So I'm asking if you think very hard about this. Do not be swayed by money, but be more concerned about what the overall long-term effect for the community is, both to your constituents and to the economics of it. I do not believe that the economics that they're presenting are truly solid economics for this community, because they're really not concerned about your community, they're concerned about making money. That's the way business does.
Sure, we're several minutes over the time we've been allotting to everybody. Appreciate it.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cindy Goley. Cindy Goley.
I only brought 2 of my 3 binders this evening. My name is Cindy Goley. I live at 2698 West Black Road, and we're at Goley's Orchard, so we do farm and we do have the orchard. Our land does adjoin in part to the solar panel, the proposed solar panel companies, what they want to do there. So the reason, I might as well throw this away, most of the things have already been talked about. I don't want to take up everybody's time to be here until 11:59, which I saw well, anyway, I looked at the time, how long we could be here. The main points that I wanted to bring up were some that weren't brought up so far. We live so close to this, and this goes for all of our neighbors. And I want to thank you for letting us speak this evening. I'm in the buffer zone, so they've already covered that. Anyway, one of the things I didn't talk about was the safety due to fire. When these solar panels are brought in, not only is it invasive grass that they use, and I brought these up to tell you that I've been working on this. I've studied this. This has become my life since June. So I feel like I wanted to be taken seriously because this is a serious matter. The very beautiful young lady over here, she said, I've been in the game, or we've been in the game for years. Well, it's not a game to us. This is our life. This is what we're going to pass down to our children. This is what we brag about when we say, oh, come to Madison. This is what the people at the Clifty Falls State Park say when they come to visit from all over the world. They love Madison. And often people come to live here. They move here because of the beauty. But when we take that land away for panels up on the hilltop, it just stops growing. We won't have housing. We can't point out the beauty of that section because it isn't pretty. And we feel that way. And I think the people that live there close by that are on Deputy Pike or Borchstein, anywhere around there has to be depressing. That's what you're going to look at every day, 24/7. So I don't think that has been brought up much about the mental health of the residents. Now, we've been there for so many years. I've been there for 45 years of the 100 years. And I can tell you right now, we can't pull up our roots, literally. We can't move the trees. I guess we could, but we don't want to because this is a tradition. And this is where we want our children to stay. And 4 of our sons have already decided to live within the area, very close to our farm. And I think that they might, in the future, like to expand, buy farmland. Well, it's not available. It's been taken up by other people. I might state that we are also concerned about the wildlife. We're concerned about safety. And for everything that they said, you have to remember they're salespeople who want to sell a product. So they're going to only say what they think will sell that product. And we know, and I know from studying all this, there's a lot of reasons why we don't want the solar panels. So I'm asking the board to please consider not passing a change on this particular R4 to ag, because we know that R4 is in respect to all of our neighbors, friends, and I also want to say that there's nothing, our motto, which we were told then, and I had to be reminded of, it was like it's supposed to be safe and beautiful and all that. Well, there's nothing safe or beautiful that I've read about. When you look at it, it won't be beautiful to look at the panels. And I guess mainly I just want it there for our children to look at because they're going to be right next to it. Hopefully for the rest of their lives, as the rest of our family has been. I can't think of any other thing other than abatements. We haven't started on abatements with this company, but I did go to the other company that's represented in Saluda, I believe, Smyrna County down south of us. And when I sent in those abatements, they don't want to pay taxes. They want to pay 0 the first year, 10% the next, 10%, 10%, 10% each year. So that didn't sound right either, that they didn't want to give back. But our family has given back, and our neighbors give back, and we all do. And so even though we can't vote for you, we are pleading with you and standing on our private rights, because there's public laws and there's private laws, and we're standing on our private laws. Because we can't vote for you, that's all we have left is our Constitution. So I'm standing as one little person in the United States of America, asking you to please consider my rights too, and all of our family. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Paul Dooley? Is there Paul Dooley?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My wife just spoke, so I won't be too repetitive about the comments that she made, but I just want to say that my grandfather purchased the farm that we operate now, a family farm and orchard, nearly 100 years ago, and we've been in continuous business at that location through those years, and I want the opportunity to pass that opportunity to farm and operate that orchard on to my children, sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. That's important to me. I also am very concerned about the possible environmental impact it could have on our orchard, because those solar panels are going to give off reflectivity and radiation, which it possibly could increase the temperature in the surrounding area, which we own it right adjacent to some of those proposed solar panels. So we're downwind from that area, and if they, if they have some type of a natural disaster, such as, he briefly mentioned some of the things that they have looked into, but I don't particularly agree with his assessment of hail, because they just had a hail damage in Texas just recently, which very heavily damaged some of those panels there. So I don't believe that they're hail resistant. And I've lived in this community my whole life, going on 70 years now. So I know the kind of disasters that we can have in our weather disasters we can have in the Ohio River Valley, from tornadoes to hailstorms to lightning, and this assortment of different things that could damage those panels. And our farm, like I said, is adjacent to some of that proposed site. So if anything does contaminate the ground, it's going to be downstream from us too, as well as downwind from us. So, I really can't protect that type of disaster. I don't have any control over it. So, once it's put in, there's no turning back on it. So I just can't, like my wife said, we've been there for 100 years, I just can't pull up my trees and move, because it's a long-term commitment to set an orchard and take care of it. So, I'm very concerned about living that directly within a quarter mile from that site, some of those panels. So I've also got concerns about, how it's going to affect the wildlife, and bees, that is important to us as far as pollination of our fruit crops, which I don't know how that's going to affect them, and other different type of vegetables that need to be pollinated by the bees are going to be possibly affected by these solar panels. I'm also kind of concerned. I know we want to have a beautiful city and everything, and attract people in our community, but they mentioned the State Road 7 and the Deputy Pikes on some of their visuals there earlier, but they didn't mention State Road 62 coming from Hanover into Madison, that if you come in you're going to be looking to the left, you're going to see all those solar panels back there. Just, it's going to be your first almost black eye welcoming to our community, which I don't think that you really want that to be a first impression. And the airport's right there. You got visitors coming in from the airport. They're going to be flying directly over those panels on their approaches and descents. And I just think that's not a good impression, first impression on our city either. That's based on my wife touched on all those points, so I just don't want it to be rezoned from the R4 to keep it the same. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kyle Gold.
We all walked in together, so we're all on the road. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Kyle Gully, 3681 West Deputy Pike Road. So I'm kind of right in the middle of all these solar panels. My parents' farm's right behind me. Grew up there, raised 3 children here. I like the outdoors. I like going to our community, enjoying it. When I go to the big city and the concrete's there, the solar panels, it feels good to come home. It's clean, it's green, it's cooler. Our area is already hot. There's a lot of trees gone for all the fields. The core doesn't make it a lot worse, but I think solar panels will. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Paul Weatherby. Paul.
Thank you for listening. My name's Paula Weatherby, and I live at 2685 West Deputy Pike Road, and we live on Big Clifty Creek. And Clifty Creek right now is barely moving, but when the water gets up, just like the year when Walnut Street flooded, our creek flooded, and it took out, and I'm not good on numbers, but it took out, our lane is a quarter-mile drive, and it took over 200 feet, probably, all the way down to bedrock. We had a paved driveway. Our driveway was completely stripped on that area. It took 3 tandems of gravel to fill that in. We can never have a paved drive again because we can't trust it. Because the Clifty Creek floods. It flooded so much that it jumped the banks and came straight down our road and made our road a creek. Now, if these panels, the panels will run right along our drive on the opposite side. And if these are put on there and the whole land is stripped, now this makes me absolutely sick, because when they come out here to our property and they do this, they're going to take every tree. They're going to take every fence line. There's not going to be, you look at pictures of solar, there are no trees. There is nothing green. There are no berries or vines or anything for animals to habitat in or birds to nest in. There's nothing. You're going to make our area a wasteland. It's going to be a flat, ugly area. This is one of the most beautiful areas in the county. I'm not against solar. We need solar. We need alternative, but we need to be smart, and we need to think about it, and we need to decide where we want to put it. And this is not the correct place to put it. We're doing this. They will promise you anything. This is a business deal. They don't care about our lives or our land or anything else. They care about coming in here and getting, how many did they say they already have? All over the United States. Well, we are just a market, because our land is valued lower than other lands in different parts of the state. So we're easy pickings. They think that they can come in here just like they went to Appalachia and they took mountaintop removal, and oh, well, you know, then the people are left. They just had a flood, a major flood, and part of that was caused
by taking all the trees off and flooding the area. Now, the USDA, according to the president of the Farm Bureau, says that 7% of our farmland will be lost in these two projects, just these two projects, the one in Saluda and the one here. Now, I own, with my sister and my niece, a farm over on 62. I have received 3 letters from a solar company. They are not the 2 solar companies that you're dealing with here. It's Clean something. They want it. And if you change this zoning, you think that this is the end of it? That it's going to be 1,000 acres? They're going to cover our county with solar. They don't care. We're cheap, and we have what they want, and they think we're stupid, and we're going to let our country go to that. Now, we built up all these years. I've had 2 sisters that have had shops in Madison. One for 40 years, they don't now, they're retired, and one almost 50 years. Margie's Country Store and the Rockabye Lady. We have worked to build up tourism. It isn't a new thing. We've started since the 70s. My sister started that shop down there. And it's going to be lost because now you're going to have setbacks. But you can't hide this. It's not going to go away. It won't be hidden. And it's never going to come back. These tree lines, they represent where farms were. We had individual farms that people lived there, and now they've been bought out by people who look at this as a commodity, something that they can use to make money. And when do you ever get enough money? I mean, it's not what we want. It's not the Madison that I know. I grew up here. Our family settled in Switzerland County in 1798. My 3rd great-grandfather signed the Constitution of this state. We have been here for a long time. We moved from Switzerland County in 1918, and that grandfather was honored in 2016 for being a signer of our Constitution. Now, this is not what Madison stands for. This is not who we are. And it just makes me sick. The zoning that we have is correct. We don't need the zoning changed. We need to keep what we have. Do you think they'd come here if we didn't have something valuable? We have something valuable.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to call time a little bit. We're several minutes over. You could just-
We have a jewel, and we need to keep it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Rich Kirkland?
Apologies, it's on the wrong paper.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Jed Skillman?
Jed Skillman, 1505 Michigan Road. And I am a resident of Madison, and I vote here. And I'm not opposed to solar. We're, like I've said before, my wife and I are considering putting 2 solar panels on our porch roof to drive a backup sump pump, just in case. But this is not that kind of a project. And if the scope of this project and what the woman said about there's a 3rd company out there, so you got some sharks in the water now, and it's going to be incredibly disruptive for the public here in Jefferson County. And this is their way of life, and there's no benefit directly to them. So I would say this may be a right project, but it's in definitely the wrong location. Other notes here have been covered by other people, but I'm definitely with them on this. Thank you.
sign, so before we close the public hearing, I think there are others that may want an opportunity to come to the podium. We're going to let everybody speak who wants to speak, so sir, come to the podium and give your name and address, please.
My name is Michael Greco. I live at 1106 East Street. First, just a couple of points for the council. The financial aspect. This gentleman over here stated that they're going to be putting in about $20 million over the life of the project. That's about $1 million a year. We've got a private entrepreneur here that owns several McDonald's here. I'd say he pays $1 million a year in taxes over his 6 or 7 businesses he owns. The only thing his hamburgers affect is my waistline, nothing else. Another gentleman said that there's no heat released. Well, solar came out in the 1950s. It was 3% efficient. That means only 3% of the sunlight is used. The rest is released as heat. Right now, at Optimum, you've got 23% efficiency. Over 20 years, gentlemen said that they could recycle 85% of that. Now, if nothing changes, if those panels don't degrade a bit, you're still only recovering 19%. So where does the rest go? Talked about sheep grazing, nice picture, you know, looks sunny and everything, sheep are out there. Well, there's 4,000 acres in California right now that in March was damaged by hail. They have no idea what to do with it. It's still sitting. There's no sheep out there, there's no longhorn steers. It's a hazardous waste is what it is. I'd ask that the council research and see if Blackstone has anything to do with this company here. Being that Blackstone owns 5 or 6 different solar companies, and I'd like to know if their portfolio has anything to do with Blackstone, being that Blackstone does have Chinese involved, does have Korean, LS is Korean, and so it is tied into it. Now, they might not have a Chinese or an Iranian on the board, but their money, follow the money. The blacks came up here, generations of the blacks that have given back to this community, firefighters, first responders. I'm a novice firefighter, I'm just learning the trade. But I know, and they will probably be able to give more information. California, the battery farm caught fire. It burned for 5 days. That's flames and toxic smoke for 5 days. Well, that wasn't the end of it. It smoldered for 11 days. So 11 days you have firefighters out there pouring chemicals on, and they're wearing self-contained breathing apparatus, but nobody else in that area had that on. They all had to be evacuated, and they had to be evacuated several times. And solar might be good, but in 70 years, you've only had a 20% increase in efficiency. And I'd ask this company, if solar has been around for 70 years, show me one farm, there's over 3,000 in this country, one farm that has been reclaimed and given back as farmland in 70 years, if the lifespan is only 20 to 30 years. So what has happened to all those farms in the 70 years? I'd say it's still a hazardous waste. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dustin Trapp. I live on 4260 West State Road, 256 in Hanover, Indiana. I've lived here for over 20 years with my parents. My background is I've worked at the Boys and Girls Club for 5 years, and I did 10 years of 4-H, and I've also helped for a couple of years as a 4-H leader. I have 2 primary concerns. Number 1, with the tax revenue, I took a picture of the slide for the 20 million plus in tax revenue that can be used for schools, roads, and infrastructure projects. It's a projected number. I would just like to know how that number was generated and how much that would affect each residential address for the citizenry that we would have to pay, whether that property tax goes up or not. I mean, I talked to my father and he tells me that his property tax goes up. I'm to be married in November of this year. and I've talked with my fiance. We're interested in farming and potentially living here in Madison, and if that affects our farming and agriculture, that would be a concern for us. My second concern is the fact that for the weatherization that was presented on one of the slides, I didn't see anything for floods. At our address, there in July of 2020, we get a lot of bad flash flood warnings. And when we had a flood that came out, and we live right a few houses down from the 4-H fair, when the water came in, it lifted up our permanent asphalt where it connects to the bridge there and lifted it up and put it into our yard. So I would just like to urge and encourage the city council here to ask these questions and see if you could present a graph to the citizenry of how these two things answers for that. Thank you.
Good evening. I won't take you guys' time too much. I know you've been sitting here listening to everybody patiently, and we appreciate it. Thanks for listening to our voices. My name is Todd Laurie. I live at 2956 North 533. I have been Laurie, L-O-W-R-Y. My background is I was a firefighter, EMS for 24 years with an associate's degree in emergency management. Currently, I have a bachelor's degree in environmental health and safety. So, first off, for these two gentlemen behind me for mirroring my concerns, not only about the environmental impact that these panels can have, but also the financial impact they can have of money is not staying in the United States. That's a concern. So, when's the last time you guys went and took a drive down Deputy Pike or Chicken Run? How many red signs did you see? All kinds of them. And I know you got just a smidgen of signatures of 200, almost 300 signatures that, we don't want it. But, that's only 300. But in that area, our neighborhood, that's pretty much everybody. That neighborhood right there, these are the people that for years, before they would call 911, they'd call my house. They'd want me to come over and take care of them. And I'd be like, call 911. But I would get there. Now when something happens around home, we show up. And it's not to say what happened, it's to say what can we do to help. And these neighbors are the ones that's helping us right now. I would like to thank the people for presenting the pictures that they had up. One was really, the two pictures they had, one is from Highway 7, you can't see it. Duh. You got a valley and a hill between here and there. You got a road right across from where it's being built. There's no pictures taken there. The second picture is right in front of Mr. Hord's farm. You got a valley going up. You won't see it from there. But the next road up, Orcharding, you'll see it real well. You can put lipstick on a pig all you want, but nobody's going to dance with it. Sorry, I have a reputation for throwing some humor in on things that kind of bother me. So, yes, we have our neighborhoods. We have also the property values are going to go down. We've had one person say, your property value is not going to go down. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Your property value is very much going to go down. That has been proven in Florida, Texas. I can go on and on about that. Areas that it has not gone down is where it's in rural areas where you have even less population than we do. So that's the only time it doesn't affect. When I said that we worked in emergency services for all those years, for the two gentlemen that said that they were first responders in this area, thank you for what you do. But the other thing is, like he said, the fire that burned for 5 days and it went on for 11 days caused an evacuation. I happen to have known about that. That evacuated 2,500 people. With the winds in our area, that means the hilltop would have to be evacuated. And for that 5 days that they're on scene trying to put it out, that's going to be every department you got in Jefferson County, Jennings County, probably across the river. You're going to have everybody coming in to help that because we're not equipped to handle it. And that's not a slam on our guys. Not a slam at all. They don't have the training. They don't have the resources. They don't have the manpower. God bless them for what they do, but they're just not equipped to handle that kind of an emergency. Nobody is. So if you will look around at everybody that's come up here and spoke to you today, you've seen these young guys that are young families that are wanting to start here. We moved out here because we didn't want to be in the city. My family started farming in 1966 in this area. And I'm building in this legacy right across the airport, where I've got runoff coming from the creek below me to the north and right on my land to the south. That concerns me. But it just concerns me a lot that we're going to throw away this farmland, and we're going to ruin our generations to come. So just remember, you've got people that's fighting for their future and fighting for their legacy, and I hope that speaks volumes to you tonight. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
My name's Mark Frazier, live 3738 North 300 West, kind of ground zero. I'm new to Madison. I moved here August of 22. I faced my first nightmare February 23 when I woke up to my house on fire. In June, 2 weeks before I found out I was getting my house back, I found out me and my neighbors were facing a worse nightmare. I recently got a health diagnosis that renders me not able to take care of my 5 acres in my house anymore. 28 days ago, I put my place up for sale. About an hour ago, I checked, I had 1,667 views, 86 saves, not one offer. My real estate agent is a friend. She does not live here. So she contacted a real estate agent here in Madison. My area is called disapproved, unapproved. Nobody wants my house. It's brand new, rebuilt, inside and out. It's beautiful. I can't stay here. It seems like I don't have a choice. I've got 2 people that I know of that said, if you don't get a solar farm, we're interested in your home. If you get a solar farm, they're not interested. So any of my neighbors who unfortunately may have an issue like myself and be forced to move, they're not going to be able to. Property values are not going to go down. They've already gone down. I can't even get a low ball offer. What are we to do? I ask you please to reconsider this zoning change. Thank you.
Somebody else coming.
Okay, so I'm David Riley, and I live at 3129 West Black Road. So basically from my front yard, you can look across 62, and you can see the area where the solar farm, the planned solar farm, would be. And most of the things that I wanted to say have already been covered. But I just wanted to say, you guys were elected. You've had people give you trust to do the right thing. And now these people that work for the energy company, I don't know them. They might be the greatest people in the world. But the fact of the matter is, that's their job. That's what they are paid to do. And they're going to tell you anything that they can. Because that's their job. Just like if my job told me to go do something, I would do it. Otherwise, I don't have a job. But one of the big things that I would like to say, because I've not heard anybody mention it, one of the big things that was happening in Jefferson County when I was a kid, when I grew up, was the last project that came here that said, electricity is going to be the savior of Jefferson County. And I'm sure you all have heard of Marble Hill. $3 billion was wasted. And that's $3 billion when it shut down in 1984. So can you imagine what the inflation-adjusted price for that is? And the citizens of Indiana paid for it all. Was it our fault? No. But we get to pay for that after an energy company came in and dropped the ball. So we've experienced this before. This is not something that's new here. And every one of you know what Marble Hill was, what it was supposed to be, and what it turned into. A steaming pile of, I'll be nice and not say it, but we all know. So I would like you guys to take this into consideration, because it is not the right thing for us. It's a company coming in here, putting their stuff down, and then leaving. All they care about is the profit. They don't care about anybody that's in this room. They care about making money. That's the bottom line. I'm just asking you to do the right thing. That's all I have.
I'm Bob Klein. I'm on 2410 North, 533 West. I think they are doing their job, but they twist the truth. The gentleman that said 40% of our corn goes to making gas-to-haul alcohol, he's right, as a nation. Not in Indiana, though, because Iowa is a big corn producer. 62% goes there. So maybe about 25%. We have this beautiful Ohio River, a lot of corn I hauled for years. Goes on down, actually to Covent, Louisiana, and goes overseas. It makes our commodities, corn, beans, makes a good trade deficit, you know, in the world trade. But I've been in the solar business since I was about 15 years old. I remember my great-grandmother in this area, next to the Hordes, and I've got great-grandchildren. If I live another 15, 20 years, I'll see 9 generations. But, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm not a good speaker, a whole lot better farmer. But I've been collecting solar since I was about 15 years old. I call it corn, soybeans, wheat, hay. And it gives back to the community. It gives oxygen. You're worried about clean water? This is one of my kids. And we got how many in the community? About 30 of us. We're kind of a little commune now. Yeah. But, you know, maybe lose my train of thought here. I think all that stuff's collecting solar. It's giving off oxygen. It's taking carbon dioxide out of the air. So we got clean air, okay? What's a solar panel give us? No, doesn't give off oxygen, clean air that we breathe. They've really been down in these coal plants. Well, the future of electricity is going to be nuclear. Solar's not going to get it done. We do need electricity. It is clean and stuff, but nuclear is so much better. We've got submarines going around. My brother was passed away a year ago, but he was one of the nation's top nuclear. He served his country in the Naval Academy, and he is a spy. Went to the war in Iraq. He's been to China, been all over the world. And it's a safe, you know, when you think nuclear, you think nuclear bomb, you think Chernobyl, and we know now that Chernobyl was deliberately done that way. You just about have to be an idiot to have well, you would be an idiot if you had a disaster like that. So that's where it's all headed. Even the solar people will admit it. But I think my crops and the rest of people's crops, and like another gentleman, I want to reiterate, it's not going to stop at 1,000 or 3,000 acres. They will take, if you open the door and the county opens the door, we're doomed. It's disastrous. Thank you.
We've had almost 3 hours of presentations and public testimony, and I'd like to close the public hearing soon, although I see Mr. Oxford coming to the podium.
Warren Oxford, 3611 Ohio West Review Road. Wanted to bring back, I've listened to a lot of discussion this evening on many different issues, and I believe it has a tendency to get off track. The decision that is before you tonight is a land use question. It's a zoning question. It's not a question of how we should best provide solar for the country. It's not a question of whether solar panels pollute or don't pollute. It's a zoning. It's a question. It's not about how much economic development money it may or may not provide you. It's land use. You have a plan commission who their job is to specialize in advising and looking at land use questions. Sometime in the distant past, your plan commission put a great deal of effort into determining what the zoning classifications of this ground should be. And they decided it should be residential agricultural and low density residential. And the question before you tonight then needs to stick with that. You have a plan commission that looked at this in detail, made an unfavorable recommendation to you on this question, and you should not let your decision be influenced on issues about how much economic development money it may make for you, how much electricity or how it needs to be produced. Look at that land use decision and base your decision there. It's very unusual for a council to overrule a unanimous decision of their plan commission on a zoning change. And do not get sidetracked by all of the other issues. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and we will close the public hearing and reconvene the city council meeting. That takes us back to the second reading of the ordinance. Yeah, we blended a lot of these things, and I'll leave it here, which is turning it over to council. If you have any questions, comments you'd like to make, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the agenda on this particular ordinance. We're in the regular second reading now. Yeah, back to the meeting.
Okay. This is probably one of my most difficult city council meetings to attend. The best one I ever had was in the same building. So I'm sorry. So to the people of the buffer zone, I want you to know that while you did not elect me to represent you, I take the process of rezoning this land very seriously. I have done my due diligence. I have researched zoning laws, read about other communities' experiences, as well as read all the information provided by the solar company in question. I've watched public meetings in surrounding areas